Yeah, 1 2 1 2.
Hey yo, AC.
1 2 1 2. Mic check. Hey, can y'all hear me out there? Hey. Against all odds. 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 Against all odds.
I'm loving it. Good morning. Welcome to the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It is Thursday, April 3rd. It is going to be Struggle Bus Thursday for me. Feel like dog poo, but we're going to get through it because we want to make sure that we get out all this news and rumors and conversations that we're going to have this morning. One named Shamar Stewart. Second one, Alim McNeill. Did a little background, a little deep dive into both of these guys, and especially Shamar, because yesterday, I mean, there was a lot of great news, coming out 2 nights ago, that Shamar Stewart was going to get a top 30 visit. And I think that those of us that know the Detroit Lions know how important it is for top 30 visits for Brad Holmes and what that really means for a player and their potential to become a Detroit Lion here in 2025. But you know what? Before I go down that entire rabbit hole, let me just do this. Let me welcome everybody in this morning. Thank you for joining the Rise and Grind Morning Show. Like, share, subscribe, do all the goodies that you normally do each and every day. Get the likes up. We get the ads off. Let me get Eric in here. Eric, good morning, buddy.
Good morning. How's everybody doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing wonderful, man. Trying to anyway. Trying to hang in there.
Yeah, we got a good little crew in today. Let's see who's in here today. We got Riley O'Brien, Mike P, Tracy, Let's Go Lions, Attila Hardy. Let's see who else is in there. Rocked On Detroit Lions is in there. Trace, John Desage. Maureen is in this morning. Mike P, Pat Beach, Dennis Tytek, Estella at Eves, and if I forgot anybody, I apologize. But we got Wayne Rodgers, Mark V, Gino, Brandy Coffee, Cake Man 1218. Hey, Cake Man, I haven't seen you in here for a while. So good morning, everybody.
Yeah, so yesterday, man, just another crazy day of weather here. It really rained and stormed all day. It was medicine day for me. So usually I'm going to feel like crap for a couple of days, but it is what it is, man. We're going to push through it today. So
yep.
Where I wanted to start is Shamar Stewart. And then I want to talk about Alim McNeill. And I did a little deep dive into some ACL, tears and recoveries over the last couple of seasons, and to kind of give Lions fans that have doubt about Alim McNeill maybe a little bit of a more positive side or story, the potential for Alim McNeill. But I don't think it's all roses either. I think that this season could be difficult for him. But you know what? Alim is a consummate pro, and I think that the Lions have a good plan in place, like they always do for all their football players, to make sure that, like Dan said, he's got to be healthy. He's got to be back to himself, feel like himself. That's the most important thing. So we're going to get into all that. And then, Eric, you have a few things lined up for us today. And then we're going to finish at some point with a little bit of movie day today. We're going to recap Dan Campbell's meeting. We wanted to do it yesterday, but we talked too much, so we didn't get a time to do it. But let's do it today. And I think today couldn't have been a more perfect day to do it, honestly, because that'll give me a break. So let me switch screens here. I want to talk about Shamar Stewart, and I'm going to call each and every one of you out right now that is doubting this kid. So here we go. The Detroit Lions hosted Shamar Stewart on a top 30 visit yesterday. I have read many comments, news articles, reports, PFF, Yahoo Sports, ESPN. I've read a ton about Shamar Stewart. And of course, I've had amazing conversations the day of the combine with an individual that knows Shamar Stewart extremely well, and that was Mr. Nicky Scorton. I know I've mentioned his name a lot, but there was so much that came out of those conversations. And getting to know these players without even having a conversation with them, and the type of information that you can get from people that are extremely close to these players, right? Their son plays with him. They're good friends. They hang out all the time. So you get to learn some things that you're not going to hear from anyone else, right? You're not going to read it in a story. You're not going to read it from some other, analyst or media outlet. These are things that the team gets to learn. I just happen to be in a good position that day. And you know what? A little bit of luck went my way. But Shamar Stewart, for all of you that have commented, whether it was on my channel, other channels, I've seen it, where you're doubting Shamar Stewart because of his production in saying that, well, he only had 1.5 sacks. We don't need that kind of a guy. He's no good. Matter of fact, I've been reading the comments so much so that they say that he's a boom or bust type of candidate, prospect in 2025, leaving all of the doubt over Shamar Stewart, and not only his 9.99 RAS score, his freaks list, and amazing qualities as an individual, but also his freakish athletic ability. It can't be denied. It just can't be. But if you think that this guy's a boom or bust, you can say that about anybody. Honestly, you can say it about any player that's coming out of this draft. I think it is a loosely used term in today's NFL, boom or bust. What does that even mean anymore? These guys have to come into a pro, a pro quality and pro standard where they're going to learn things very quickly. They're going to be with coaches and teachers, right? Guys that have been around, this stuff for a very, very long time that are going to be able to impress, upon these young minds and be able to create the style of football player that they want and grab all of the wonderful things that Shamar Stewart's already bringing to the table and make it better. So after watching plenty of tape on many athletes this spring, but especially the LSU game and the Mizzou game, because why? Well, Will Campbell, that's why. Armand Membu, that's why. I wanted to see what Nick Scorton did, what Shamar Stewart did, what anybody else did up against these quote-unquote top-tier offensive linemen. And I will say this, there were plenty of reps where Shamar Stewart got the better of both of those guys. And there were some reps where he didn't do so great, just like every single prospect in this year's draft. Is he perfect? No, nobody is. No prospect is coming into the league in their first season perfect. They're all unrefined. Every single one of them has untapped potential. Is he raw? Yes. And why? Because he's young. He's coming from a defense, in my opinion, that employed a little bit more of a containment theme versus the pass rush and blitz theme. He's also a junior. That's correct. He's a junior. And I've been seeing comments, I might have been on my own channel, where people are saying, well, Shamar's played 4 seasons, only had 1.5 sacks. The dude's trash. Well, hello, he hasn't played 4 seasons with Texas. He's a junior. He's played 3 seasons. So stats do matter. Facts matter even more. If you want to have an argument, that's okay. If you want to have a disagreement, we can do that. All I request is let's look at the facts, right? Let's not just make up random stories here because that just doesn't make people look very intelligent, in my opinion. You can say that, like Todd McShay said, he's disruptive, not productive. I think that is a great way to describe Shamar Stewart to a degree, sack-wise. He's absolutely productive. But do the Lions need a mass production of sacks out of Shamar Stewart in 2025 if they happen to draft him? Or do they need a guy on this defensive line that can be unselfish and force the offense to do what they don't want to do? Force the ball to the other side, which, by the way, you have players like Aiden Hutchinson, eventually Alim McNeill, Levi Onwuzurike, DJ Reader, Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes, and others waiting to get their crack at whoever Shamar is forcing the other way. So it's not so much about production from sack perspective. You have to look at the other stats to go along with what he did. So you know that I do deeper dives, sometimes more than most people. I come with these crazy stats that I always have since I started this channel. I've been a little lazy lately on getting videos out, just simply no excuse. Just been lazy. Not enough time in my day, whatever it is. But can anyone really name right now? This is a question for you. In the comments later, the chat right now, can you name another player. Let me think about this for a second. Can you name another top-tier defensive end coming out of college that had similar stats, traits, style, size, speed that Shamar Stewart does coming out of his final season? Anyone. Just any other player that is right now a top-tier athlete in the NFL, top-tier defensive end. Because I'm going to tell you that there's one, for sure. There's one. And I'm wondering if any of you out there have actually done your homework. I'm going to let that marinate for just a second, and I'm going to come back to it. Let me tell you a little bit about Shamar Stewart. He was named to the SEC All-Freshman team in 2022 and a third-team All-SEC last season. He's definitely a high upside prospect, right? He's seen as having all the physical tools. I mean, he completely blew away the combine, but they haven't really translated, they being his tools, if you will, translated to pass rush production for sacks, maybe as expected. And there's a litany of things that we can talk about. Some things that I've already mentioned as to the reason why. Was he in on all the pass rushing downs? Nope, he wasn't. Matter of fact, he was in on less than 75% of them. Did he play all of the snaps with the Aggies last year? Nope. Was he a starter last year? Yes, that was his first year where he was getting starting opportunities. Did he play in all the games? Yes, very durable. But the question is why? Well, here's why. He did become a full starter until last season as a junior. He slimmed down from 281 pounds at the Senior Bowl to an ultra lean 267 pounds at the Scouting Combine. He ran a very impressive 4.59 40-yard dash with a 40-inch vertical and a 131-inch broad jump. I mean, both of those were among the best, if not the best, in the positional group that day. These are elite athletic traits. And by the way, his APE index is 1.10. Huge wingspan, long arms, everything that you want in a prospect he has. And that wingspan means that he can go back up in weight. The 281 pounds that he was carrying throughout the season, that's not all he can carry. And he carried it well. He can carry that and more. Now you combine all of this, like I said, with an 84 3/4 inch wingspan, very solid in run defense. Yeah, he missed a few tackles. Again, that's technique, things that can be taught, right? You can't teach speed. You can't teach a guy to jump. You can't teach those things. He has it. You can't teach a guy to be long. He has all of the things that you want. The question is whether and when the pass rush potential can be untapped in such a raw prospect, young prospect, physical specimen, freaks list. The guy is incredible. He absolutely is. Again, I will use the term raw. He was also an All-SEC third team honors as a junior when he led the Aggies. Get this, 7 quarterback hurries. He only accumulated 5.5 tackles for loss, but at 6'5", 281 pounds during the season, he definitely proved to be remarkably durable throughout his collegiate career. He appeared in 37 games across 3 seasons. His presence was obviously felt in 2024, particularly when he racked up 39 total pressures on 315 pass rush snaps. According to PFF, I probably should have done this, but let's just go ahead and divide these snaps up real quick. So if he had 39 total pressures and 315 pass rush snaps, what is he winning at? What's his win rate? 12.4%. It's pretty good. It's not great. It's pretty good, though. Very disruptive. NFL scouts are drooling over this guy at the combine. Historic combine performance. Some of his strengths. He's not just a workout warrior, right? This guy brings absurd get off the line. His acceleration, his raw speed, from every stance. He can play everywhere across the defensive line. He flashes an incredible amount of pocket collapsing ability, long arm, stab arm, two-handed bull rush. He has it all. Generational lateral explosiveness. I don't like to use the G word often, but he is a generational talent. I mocked him as the next Myles Garrett. Others have mocked him as somebody else, but I'm also going to give you that name here pretty soon. And I haven't checked the chat out, but we'll see if any of you got it right. Versatile as a stunt weapon. He has the ability to shrug off punches, modest success on a two-hand chop, but he has the ability to add more, right? And as you get ingrained into these professional defensive line groups, right, where you've got amazing teachers, he's going to excel quickly. He plays with competitive fire. His motor is always going, but his raw size, it makes him nearly impossible for tackles to displace and lock up at the line of scrimmage, where he can get long and get around you. Some say he doesn't have good bend. I see great bend. And I think that it was more evidenced at his pro day. He absolutely has good bend. His ankle flexion maybe not the greatest, but I'm not going to say that it doesn't exist, because you watch plenty of tape where it does. He's twitchy. The guy's super twitchy, and he dominates when he has the ability, an opportunity to get after the passer. He dominates. Here's the final thing that I'm going to throw at you. There is an NFL elite defensive end right now that you could definitely comp Shamar Stewart to. Now, this guy only had 1.5 sacks in his final season at LSU, 2 hurries, and 14 pressures. Now, you would have thought by looking at those numbers that he's a 4th-round draft pick. He's going to be a bust, right? Because if that's what you're saying about Shamar, then you have to say that same exact thing about this guy. Worse stats than what Shamar had. He also had 690 snaps that year. So this guy, let me recap it. 1.5 sacks, 2 hurries, 14 pressures, 690 defensive snaps. Shamar Stewart, on the other hand, only 521 snaps, 33 hurries, 39 total pressures, 1.5 sacks, 170 less snaps than the other guy. Does anybody know who I'm talking about yet? Has anyone put it in the chat? Well, let me show you who this guy is. Let me just show you. Oh my goodness. Mr. Danielle Hunter. No, it can't be. Yep, it certainly can be. There's his stats, ladies and gentlemen. Right there. 1.5 sacks. 1 forced fumble. Well, my goodness. There's no way that Shamar Stewart can be an absolutely incredible football player, can he? Y'all know that I'm going to bring it. And if I have to defend somebody, if I have to defend a prospect, I hope that y'all just go a little bit deeper than look at all this surface level stuff. This is what I'm good at here. I try to find really good football players. Yep, we're not going to hit on every single one. So to compare Danielle Hunter to Shamar Stewart in their final season at their college level, Danielle Hunter, 1.5 sacks. Shamar Stewart, 1.5 sacks. Danielle Hunter, 2 hurries. Shamar Stewart, 33 quarterback hurries. Danielle Hunter, 14 pressures. Shamar Stewart, 39. All on 170 less snaps than Danielle Hunter. You can absolutely mock Danielle Hunter and Shamar Stewart in the same boat. Same category of football player, very similar size, height, weight, speed, everything. Danielle Hunter was also a freak coming out of college. I rest my case. Shamar Stewart is absolutely going to be a wrecking ball in the NFL. Yup, he might take a season or 2, just like every other athlete tends to do. Beyond 2 years, I'm expecting Shamar Stewart is going to be a top-tier athlete, top-tier defensive end in the NFL in short order. And I've been criticized for saying that. That's my forecast. Why? Because I've seen it done before. He may not come out and have 10 sacks in his rookie season. We don't need that. No team really needs that. They need a competent football player that knows what he's doing. That's what they need. They need a guy that's improving each and every single day that he wakes up. That's what they need. An unselfish football player that fits the mold of the team. Everything else can be taught because he has everything else from a physical standpoint. So, for all of you that doubt Shamar Stewart, there's your proof. Again, I rest my case. Good morning, Eric.
You caught me.
There, you sleeping?
No, I was doing something really awesome. So I have some big news for you and for everyone on the channel.
All right.
Will Rock Jr. and I just got credentialed for the UFL for the Michigan Panthers. So
Hey, there you go.
We'll be getting some behind the scenes stuff, hopefully tomorrow night. Tomorrow night at the game at Ford Field. We should have pretty much access to everything. So it's going to be pretty darn awesome. So look for some new content on the Michigan Panthers football page here on YouTube.
You'll love it, man. Great work. Congratulations to both of us. Yeah.
Yeah, we just got to fill out I'll send you a link. We just got to fill out some paperwork and we're all set.
Cool. Awesome. So yeah, the Michigan Panthers channel, it's going to take a little bit of time. To obviously get rolling, but obviously the goal is to highlight every week what the team is doing and then try to put up a few videos every week. Just like any channel, it's going to take a lot of time to get going, but our goal is to highlight, another local team that we're passionate about. I think what the UFL is doing is wonderful. I absolutely believe in the direction that they're taking everything, and I feel like they're going to put a little bit of pressure on the NFL to make some changes. And I think that it's wonderful to see, some changes already happening within the NFL. I mean, most recently, the replay assist being extended a little bit, if you will, probably a poor choice of words. But I feel like what the UFL is showing fans right now and the inside look at what you're seeing during penalties and conversation during the game, yeah, we'll probably never see it all in the NFL that way because, it's like the wonderful, like I said the other day, the wonderful world of Mr. Oz, right? They're trying to hide behind the curtain a little bit. The UFL's not. They're fully transparent as much as they can be, without slowing the game down. So I think it's exceptional what they're doing, and good work on getting that done, Eric. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah. I think it's going to be fantastic. We have front row seats, but I don't know if we're even going to use them now. Maybe for the game portion of it, we'll go up and sit in the seats. But afterward, we should get access to the coaches and the players. So I think my focus might be Bryce Perkins, the quarterback. I really like this kid. He scored 2 touchdowns last week, 1 through the air, 1 on the ground, had 163 yards passing, 177 total yards. And to me, he's a really electric quarterback, and he plays it the right way. He's mobile, but he's kind of like the way Brock Purdy is mobile, where he would rather be the pocket guy, but he'll run it in from 3 or 4 or 5 yards out if he has to. So that's the kind of guy he is. He's not going to light up the league and get 115 yards rushing in a game. That's not going to happen. Now he could, but that's not the type of quarterback that he is. He's more of a pocket passer that if he has to run, he can, but it's a very last option for him. And he played just in a few games last year, and then they named him the starter this year. So I'd really like to talk with him, and then Braylon Speaks on the defense, or maybe Kaya Nakua, because you guys seem to really like the Nakua brothers. So maybe we can talk to him, and we'll see what happens. It's gonna
we'll have to see what the flow of the media is. Obviously, doing it for the first time and then having to learn Ford Field is a pain in the ass. Getting access, it's going to be a learning experience. If we're even able to talk with one football player, I'd be happy. But at least to be able to highlight, get some things out there. Obviously, there's a lot of things that they're going to tell us we can and can't do. So it'll it's a learning experience. Let's just put it that way. You got to start from somewhere, and this is going to be a great learning experience now for the Lions too, because I haven't done anything yet with the NFL media access that I have. Thankfully, the channel has, right? We will be able to utilize it, but this will help to learn, what I'm able to do when I'm able to do it. I'm just hoping to be able to walk down after games to get into the locker room and be able to get more in-depth information. That's the key, is to get more in-depth information just to kind of be a fly on the wall, right? Like I don't want to be up in people's faces. I mean, obviously, you have all the guys that are doing it already that do a wonderful job. So
I just got a little bit more new good news. The Mackinac Bridge is now open.
what
So,
happened to it?
It's been
The
closed
wind?
for 3 days.
Yeah, the wind.
Yeah. So we haven't had mail,
Oh, no.
UPS, FedEx, nothing. Every gas station is out of gas up here.
Oh no.
Grocery stores are empty. Oh yeah, it's like an apocalypse up here.
Well, you know what's crazy is they say if so a long time ago there was all these crazy things that politically things were being talked about that if they ever shut down your debit card and you can only accept cash or like if the debit card system doesn't work anymore, you literally only have 3 days worth of food and gas in this country. 3. And so if you're not prepared a little bit, I'm not saying put on a tinfoil hat and go be a prepper, but there's something that should be said to that, right? Be prepared because you never know. You never know. And so obviously Eric going through right now, 3 days, you just said it. It's like an apocalypse up here. There's nothing up here. And you're up in the middle of nowhere, right? There's not a lot of people there. Imagine being down here.
Yeah, there's no gas. There's no nothing. I mean, everything's closed because they have nothing left. Every
crazy.
gas station, if they do have gas, has a mile long or longer, line just to get gas. It's crazy. So this will disrupt the morning show tomorrow a little bit. I won't be able to be on tomorrow morning. I got asked to go down and talk to 5th grade kids again for my cousin. She's a teacher down in Detroit area school. So I'm going to go down and talk to, 400 or 500 kids tomorrow afternoon and tell them all about YOOPERLITES. So I'm going to have to get up early in the morning and get my butt down there. So I won't be able to be on the morning show tomorrow, but we'll get some cool Panthers content tomorrow night, maybe for next week. So hopefully maybe Riley can jump on tomorrow morning.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how I feel, man. Like I was barely going to be able to do this today, so we'll see how it goes. But that's great, man. There's nothing better than being able to influence our youth. We clearly need it. We need it.
She's been asking me for a while because I did it last April or May last year. It was at the draft. So before and after the draft, I went down and talked to a bunch of kids, and she asked me if I could do it again, and she keeps asking me, when are you coming down? When you come down? I'm like, I don't know. I was like, maybe Friday, if this bridge opens up, I'll come down early and I'll do it for you. So I just found out the bridge open, so I'll give her a text and let her know I'm coming. So that's
all right. Why don't you kick us off with your first bit of news for today, so I can get some other things done in the background. But whatever you want to talk about, man, it's kind of an Eric day today.
I'm going to start off with a little bit of NFL news that affects a lot of Lions fans' hopes. Trey Hendrickson calls out the Bengals front office and says that communication has been poor regarding contract talks. Trey Hendrickson was hoping Bengals executive vice president Katie Blackburn's recent comments regarding his contract situation were part of an April's Fool's joke. Unfortunately for Hendrickson, they were not, which prompted the 4-time Pro Bowl pass rusher to issue a public response. At the owners' meeting this week, Bengals management seemed to paint a picture that talks with Hendrickson were moving forward. But Hendrickson sees it much differently. On Wednesday, Trey had this to say on the Pat McAfee show, quote, "That was a little disappointing because communications have been poor over the last couple of months. That's something that I hold in high regard. They have not communicated with my agent directly. It's been something that's been a little bit frustrating," end quote. Hendrickson, who initially signed a 4-year, $60 million deal with the Bengals as a free agent during the 2021 offseason, has 1 year remaining on his contract after he signed a 1-year, $21 million extension in 2023. The NFL sack leader last year with 17.5 sacks, Hendrickson is currently slated to make just over half as much this season than fellow pass rushers Myles Garrett, who signed a 4-year, $160 million extension earlier this offseason. And then Max Crosby had to go and make more money as well. So Hendrickson is not happy with the state of things with the Bengals. The Bengals say it's all hunky-dory and they're working on a contract. Well, Hendrickson says, I don't think so. So last night and this morning I was looking, and there are a lot of proposed trades now with the Lions and them going for Hendrickson on draft day. And that includes a swap of first round picks, but we would get a second round pick. So
hold on there. Hold on. So they're
not swap a first. It was for a second and a future something. I can't remember, but the trades just didn't make any sense. It wasn't enough for what the Bengals have been asking. The Bengals have been asking for 1 or 2 firsts, and it was more of just a swap thing. So I don't see that ever happening myself.
Did you read the Bengals? Did you read the Bengals Vice President Katie Blackburn's annual league meeting quote by chance?
No, I did not.
Okay, so obviously the Bengals have insisted that they want to retain Trey Hendrickson, and this kind of goes back to like the last couple of seasons. I guess Trey has been saying they've been promising me that we are going to get this done and just go out and perform and we'll get this done. So he does back-to-back, 17 and a half sack seasons. He's the sack king last year again. And you would think that it would have been a no-brainer. And so it kind of came out like, and again, I didn't hear if you said this, where what they had said that Trey should just be happy with the number that they're giving him. Did you say that by chance either?
No, she didn't say it. In this article. It didn't have exactly what she said.
So you didn't highlight that part where
no,
that's what really pissed Hendrickson off is that when they're saying, well, he should just be happy with the number that we're thinking he's valued at, and whatever that number is, which obviously must be a slap in the face, must be low.
Yep.
And so anyway, here's what she said at the annual meeting as the club continues to work through the process. Quote, as you're trying to put all these pieces together, you have certain limitations eventually. So he seemed to feel strongly about it and thought the strength of interest out there was going to be at a certain level. And so we said that it would be okay to at least explore. And so we don't do that all the time. But in this case, we felt like it was the right thing to do, case by case basis every time. And he's still a Bengal. So we'll see. It's just something that we'll keep working through. If I were to pick this apart as a player and someone comes out and says, so he seemed to feel strongly about it and thought that the interest out there was going to be at a certain level, is that not kind of a backhanded way of trying to say, haha, you were wrong, nobody wants you, and we're not going to trade you, and you're going to get what we give you? And that's what it kind of felt like to me. Like she's kind of being, I guess, just kind of being like a jerk about it, if you will. Like, questioning the fact that he thought that there was going to be a lot of interest. And I guarantee you there was a lot of interest.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is the Bengals are only going to be giving up Trey for the right amount of compensation, draft compensation. And if Trey felt maybe that someone would give up a first or 2 firsts or a first and a second, whatever it is, and teams were reluctant to do that, well, I think the first thing to evaluate is the draft. The draft is extremely heavy on the defensive line. So what teams are willing to give up this year is not the same as what they would have given up last year. And it wouldn't be the same as what they're willing to give up next year. So I would say that that's problem number one. That's the hurdle number one that you have to get over as a football player and as a team, is you have to understand that, well, in this situation this year, it's too heavy. Why would teams be willing to give up so much draft capital when you can just go into this draft and snag 1 or 2 really good football players? One of them could end up being a Trey Hendrickson at some point. Maybe it's half of a Trey Hendrickson. That's still really good. And you didn't give up $40 million a year. And now you've got, 4 or 5 years of control over a contract. So I felt like it was a backhanded slap. Also said this. I think he should be happy at certain rates that maybe he doesn't think he'd be happy at. I think some of it is on him to be happy at some point. And if he's not, That's what holds it up sometimes. So, it takes him to say yes to something. And also, we have all the respect in the world for him. Doesn't sound like it. He's been a great player. He's been past tense. You don't use past tense. He is a really great player. We're happy to have him. And so maybe we'll find a way to get something to work. We're just going to see where it goes. Again, I'll pick this apart. Past tense. He's been a great player. How about he is a great player?
Yeah.
We are happy to have him. How about no? We need Trey Hendrickson. We have to have him on the team. Now we're happy to have him. We're just happy to have him around.
Yep.
Just picking those things apart can really, really set a player off.
And this last part that Henderson said says something too. Quote, "They're more than welcome to call me."
Yes.
Cell phone. Same cell phone number since high school. Open line of communication is always open with me and my agent. So if they have anything they'd like to discuss, we've been nothing but willing to listen.
Isn't that amazing that the team is acting like there's been communication? This is the second time that Trey has come out with this. He did it on the Rich Eisen show during, oh goodness, was that Combine? It was Radio Row Week, where he went on and he said that, yeah, there's been like no communication. And they're blaming me for communication, which apparently, according to Trey, they're not even contacting him or his agent. So I didn't see all the fluff about Detroit Lions trades, but I'm going to lean back and just say this. Brad Holmes just told us what he's doing. Again, just told us the other day what he's doing. Some people read into the fact that they said that Brad Holmes wasn't done on the defense. No, he's done. He's done on the defense. He just said that all the top tier football players, it's over with. There is no more left. Now, if he said that, that means that Trey is also included in that, right? And then again, you could lean to the other side and say, well, maybe Brad is just playing, hide the weenie here. He doesn't want to give up his hand. Yeah, I don't think that that's true. I think that Brad isn't done adding football players ever. And I think you have to look at the context of what he's saying and look at it from the perspective of you still have the draft where he's going to add some football players. That's exactly what I think he's speaking to. Not free agency. He's talking about the draft, that he's going to add some football players to the defensive line, where he says it's not being ignored. It's not going to be ignored. And I'm not done. Well, he's not done because he has the draft in front of him. You also have, the summer, the 53-man roster cuts where you have the potential to add some football players. Brad always seems to do that every year after 53-man cuts. So I wouldn't read too far into this and think that Brad isn't done adding top tier athletes, because by his own words alone, I think that he's pretty much out on the prospect of a Trey Hendrickson coming to Detroit.
Yeah. I'm of the mindset that this saga is over for the Detroit Lions. I don't see us having anything to do with it. Brad said as much at the owners' meetings that we just don't have the money to do a high price free agent. I mean,
well, his exact words were discipline, right? You have to be disciplined with your money. And I think everyone understands now that we've been talking about this week. If you've been on, some of the morning shows, the 2020, the fact that they're trying to save $1.5 million in 26 should tell you something.
Yeah.
They're preparing to get some things done, but they have to scrape the bottom of the barrel to get this stuff done. And it's the exact same thing that both Eric and I said at the very beginning. Well, I mean, right after the Super Bowl, when we started projecting what we felt was going to happen for the offseason, it pretty much came true. Lions were going to go target a corner. Lions were not going to target anybody in free agency for the other side, of Aiden Hutchinson, if you want to call it that. They were going to bring back all the guys that they had last year. I put together my free agency list. We walked through it all, where I said, yep, I feel like this guy's coming back. I'm warm on this guy. I'm not on this guy. All of the guys, well, the majority of guys that I was warm on and the guys that I thought were coming back, I would say we hit on about 95%. I can go back and look at it and pull a number together, but I'd say it's pretty close to 95%. We expected to see the same team, because with a healthy team in 24, man, that is an incredible team in 25. It really is. So I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade that if you want, another top tier edge rusher on the other side. I'm not saying this because I have an agenda. I'm saying it because these are the facts that have remained true, right? Brad has told us what he's going to do, and he does it. It hasn't changed one bit. So, I mean, the facts are what they are.
Yeah. And up next, we have another bit of NFL news with Art Rooney, the owner of the Steelers, believes that Aaron Rodgers is headed in our direction for the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers recently followed up a really productive meeting with the Pittsburgh Steelers by conducting a private throwing session with new Steelers wide receiver DK Metcalf. Now team owner Art Rooney is all but predicting the quarterback's anticipated arrival, telling reporters Tuesday that Rodgers is, quote, headed in our direction, end quote, and is on track to sign with the team in the near future. He was quoted as saying, "We keep hearing that he's, I guess, headed in our direction." And Rooney was talking of a potential agreement via ESPN. And so that seems to mean all signs are positive so far. Rooney added that Rodgers' recent workout with DK Metcalf was a good sign for the club's pursuit of the four-time NFL MVP, who's been unsigned since his release from the New York Jets in March. He also noted that the Steelers are content being patient with Rodgers, not forever, but a little while longer. So Art Rooney thinks that they have landed Aaron Rodgers and that he is going to be a Steeler. What do you think about that, Will?
I'm still going to stick with my, I don't think that Aaron Rodgers plays this year. Why? Why would the Steelers want to invest that kind of money? Well, how old is he? 50?
41. And
close enough.
He has said that he wants a 2-year deal. He will not play on a 1-year deal. And he is looking for north of $40 million a year.
I understand the 2-year deal aspect of it because I feel like that when you get into a situation with a new team, yeah, your first year is probably not going to go the way that you expect it. And he wants to have the ability to play in a second season where you kind of build up everything in year one. You set the stage for year two. You get the players that you need. You acquire the players. You figure out who's going to work. You might have a little bit of schematic changes. And then in year two, you kind of go all in. I don't see the Steelers doing that, but at the same time, Mike Tomlin has just been this perennial 500 football, coach, 500 wins plus 500 wins football coach, limping into the playoffs and then exiting the playoffs. So I'm wondering when Tomlin's time is going to be up, and maybe this could be an all-in last approach with a quarterback that does have a lot of experience, but he's 41. He just came back from an ACL, right? Or was it an Achilles? One of the two.
Achilles, yeah.
Was it an ACL? I just don't see it, man. I feel like there's way too much risk in a 41-year-old quarterback. Way too much risk. Way too much risk with Aaron Rodgers, more importantly.
We just got a $10 super chat from Derek Lewis. In memory of Val Kilmer, one of the greatest actors of my generation who lost his battle to cancer. Farewell, Batman, Iceman, and Jim Morrison. Rest in peace, Val. I'm your Huckleberry.
I didn't know Val was battling cancer. I thought that he had ALS or...
He's been in a bad way for a while.
Yeah, he has been.
He was using a ventilator and everything. He was only 65.
Man, it's tough. That's tough. And big shout out to you, Derek, man. Big shout out for your donation to the channel, and obviously recognizing, someone else that's going through a battle. Obviously, we know Val has been a complete warrior throughout his time. Participating in the most recent, Maverick video or movie, if you will. It was good to see him in there. It's hard to imagine, right, that as a kid you watch this amazing movie, and that individual, Iceman, had to battle so much so early in his life, and he just kept battling, kept being a warrior. Pretty incredible stuff. But a big shout out to you, man. Appreciate you. Appreciate your donation. Let's get you fired up with. I don't have any airplanes or anything, so We'll get you fired up with the next best airplane here. JMO flying.
Looks, throws, it is complete. There goes JMO right side. He's got the angle to the end zone. 25-20, 15-10, 5, end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. JMO flies into the end zone, and the Lions extend their lead.
There we go. Thank you, Derek. Appreciate you, buddy.
Oh, Dan Miller's the best. One thing some people might not know, in Val Kilmer did the Doors movie, and he played the part of Jim Morrison. He sang everything in that movie.
Really?
That was actually him singing. That was his voice. He could do the Doors perfectly.
That's crazy.
He was such a good singer. And, you know, after I watched that, my wife's like, you know, he's really singing that. I'm like, no, he's not. So I looked it up, and for sure, he really sang everything in that movie.
Wow. And that was the Doors tribute movie?
Yeah, it's just called The Doors.
Yeah.
So in more NFL news, the NFL tweaks the definition of a hip drop tackle, allowing for more fines in 2025.
Of course they did.
The league issued 27 fines for hip drop tackles, 11 of which were rescinded on appeal. So they had 18 that stood. And the NFL confirmed that the only penalty for a hip drop tackle shouldn't have been a foul. There were 5 times loss injuries caused by the play. Time loss injuries were caused by the play. And the NFL, though, has clarified the language of the hip drop tackle for this season, which will likely result in more fines. The league previously identified 4 components to a hip drop tackle, and it has now cleaned up the wording for a simpler definition. That's something nice always for the NFL, because their language is never simple. The first clarification would make it a foul if, in addition to all other elements, the tackler grabs the runner with either one or both hands, as opposed to both hands under the current rule. The second change would make it a foul for a hip drop tackle if, in addition to all other elements, the tackler either lands on or traps the runner's legs. So this is how Rule 12, Section 2, Article 18 now reads. It is a foul if the player uses the following technique to bring a runner to the ground. A, he grabs the runner with one or both hands or wraps the runner with both arms, and B, unweights himself by swiveling and dropping his hips and or lower body, landing on and or trapping the runner's legs at or below the knee. It will result in a 15-yard penalty if called on the field, but the league still expects more fines than penalties. And that's the simple language. To me, oh my God.
What a mess.
Yeah.
It's just a mess.
How's a defensive player supposed to know what grabs the runner with one or both hands or wraps the runner with both arms, and B, unweights himself by swiveling and dropping his hips and or lower body, landing on and or trapping the runner's legs at or below the knee? Explain that to me, would you?
I mean, I get the whole point of the hip drop tackle. I think that when it first started, it was so it was the wrap and then the swing, right? It was the swinging of your legs forward or in some way around, the guy that you're tackling, and then you're dropping, right? Hip drop. You're dropping, on your hip or on your butt, whatever. And you're forcing the player down in an awkward position. You could pop some knees with that. There's a lot of things that could happen with it. That I understood. And it still wasn't called enough last season. But, I mean, sometimes your momentum just carries you in a way. It's almost like, when are we just going to put flags on these guys?
Well, how about this?
Well, when is it going to become flag football?
Yeah. And how about this? If it's a time loss for the hurt player of more than 2 games, then you get a 1-game suspension or you get a fine then. But I would leave it be and just say, if you do a hip drop tackle and you hurt someone, we're going to knock your paycheck, and this is how we're going to do it. I would rather see it that way after the fact, after the game, than during the game, unless it's some blatant hip drop thing. You know, I don't like the if the guy just pops up and he's fine, well, there shouldn't be a flag then, because he's fine. As long as the
I don't
guy's
know.
good.
I feel like the defense is just getting ripped apart more and more and more every year with all of these fines and things that you can't do. And it's so Warren Sapp the other day was talking about Travis Hunter and how good that he felt Travis Hunter was going to be. And he said something that I was like, wow, that was perfect analogy. So he said that the NFL has made an Autobahn now on the field. And what he means by that is you can totally run across the middle of the field and not get hit. It's an Autobahn now. Like, you're free to go as fast as you want, right, on the Autobahn. Well, you're free to run across the middle of the field and not get hit. It was a perfect analogy. I mean, that's what's going on here. Is it's just all offense. And I get it. They're trying to make sure that that there's more offense in this game, more points being scored. And I get it. I understand it. But at some point, it's just too much.
I saw a comment yesterday about the new kickoff rule and some of these new defensive rules, and they were saying that the NFL is trying to become the Arena League. They want 75 to 78 kind of scores. They want more scoring. And, watch an Arena League game sometime. It's basically a score on every play.
Hey, so real quick, we just need 15 more likes. We'll get ads off for the day, but I'll meet you halfway. You get us 7 or 8 more likes. Derek Lewis dropped a $10 super chat. So if you guys want to get us 7, 8 more likes, we'll get ads turned off for the rest of the day. It's already 9:04 a.m. 9:04 a.m. We like to see 75 by 9. Let's get her done. Let's get ads off so you guys can just not have to worry about ads, because nobody likes ads. What else you got, Eric? What's next?
All right, so we're going to get into a little Detroit Lions news. So the Detroit Lions are going to be having their local pro day. So MSU offensive lineman Luke Newman was invited to the Lions local pro day. Former Michigan State offensive lineman Luke Newman has been invited to the Detroit Lions local pro day next week at the team's Allen Park Performance Center. During his pro day workout, the 6'4", 315-pound lineman impressed onlookers with his strength, including achieving 29 reps on the bench press. According to Spartan Shadow, one more Spartan to highlight is interior offensive lineman Luke Newman. He was a one-year Spartan transferring in from Holy Cross and started all 12 games for MSU, Michigan State University, at left guard in 2024. Newman switched to guard for the Spartans after being predominantly a tackle at Hope. And that paid off. During the Shrine Bowl, Newman was asked to work on the interior offensive line, including the center position. Newman started his collegiate career at Holy Cross from 2000 to 2023 before playing the 2024 season with the Spartans. The talented lineman played in 52 collegiate games over the course of 5 seasons, 40 at Holy Cross and 12 at MSU, including starting 49 consecutive games. His last 4 seasons, 37 at left tackle at Holy Cross and 12 at guard for MSU. Last season, he started all 12 games at left tackle and led MSU with 739 offensive snaps, earning an honorable mention All Big Ten selection by both the coaches and the media. So he's played all 3 positions on the offensive line. That's versatility. And what kind of a guy does that sound like?
I'm sorry. What was the name?
His name is Newman.
First name?
Luke Newman. Newman.
Is he's a local?
Yeah, so
Michigan State, right?
Yep, from Michigan State. He's going to be here for the Detroit Lions local pro day next week.
That would be great to get into.
Yeah, maybe we can try to make that.
I mean, I should be able to get into that one, no problem. But man, it's all about. We'd have to leave the morning show to probably go do it, because I'm sure it's going to start, in the morning.
Oh yeah, starts early.
That's the hardest part. Living 2.5 hours away, I can't can't be like the rest of these guys out there.
I'm 6 hours away.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
All right. My next thing on the list is another thing of Detroit Lions. So I wore a jersey today. Brandy Coffee saw it in the comments there. Number 16, Jared Goff. Jared Goff will control more of the Lions offense in 2025.
That sounds like something I've been talking about. Who's this coming from?
Let me see. So this was on Detroit Lions on SI, and this is from Emmett Matasovsky.
Yeah, sure. Emma M.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I just spoke about that the other day, yesterday, didn't I?
I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Well, we were talking about Johnny Morton and Dan Campbell was highlighting John Morton, and I thought that I felt like Jared Goff was going to have more ability at the offensive line, and obviously he's had the ability to call audibles and that, but I think that he's going to have more control over this offense because he's been developing the offense. It's not to say that John Morton's not needed, right? Obviously he's a big important key that Dan Campbell brought in, clearly trusts him. I just feel like the way that Jared Goff has commanded this offense and helped build this offense, I feel like Jared's going to have more opportunity to call plays at the line of scrimmage as opposed to just audible. I don't know if they'll ever tell us that, but I think we'll be able to tell during the game, if he's changing up the play.
Yep. Well, since we did that one yesterday.
No, you can go ahead and talk about it. It's all right.
Well, okay. Well, let me get back here because I got something else coming up next that's a really good one. And make sure you don't read it. All right. So heading into the 2025 season on the heels of a campaign in which he led the team to 15 wins and was an MVP finalist, Campbell hinted that Goff may be in position to handle even more of the offense with new coordinator Johnny Morton. Last year, he came to us. Everything he wanted him to do in the offense, he did, Campbell said Tuesday. And then he began to bring stuff to us. Hey, man, I can see this look. Let me get to this play. I know I've got these options in the bag, but let me get to this as well. Those are the things where he's okay. Here we go, man. That's beginning to show. And I would anticipate that to take another step up. And this was Dan Campbell talking. I truly believe this is Dan Campbell's foreshadowing the 2025 offense to new heights under new offensive coordinator John Morton, with a little help from David Shaw and a lot of help from Jared Goff. Myself, I could see an offense even more suited to Goff than ever before and more control of plays at the line of scrimmage. Goff flourished after sitting down with Ben Johnson in Johnson's first season as offensive coordinator. Both John Morton and Shaw could and should take the same approach with Goff and the offense this offseason. So now I want to get into something, a silly thing NFL teams do during the scouting process that could push one of the best players to the Lions in the NFL draft. And I want to know what you think of this. So I'm going to read a little article, and then I want to get your response to this, Will.
Who's it by?
So this is by A to Z Sports Mike Payton.
All right.
So Mike Payton puts out some pretty controversial stuff. So let's hear what he's got to say here. The NFL does a lot of silly stuff during the NFL draft process. At times, it's like teams will look at every single thing that they can look at instead of what the player does on the field. Hand size. Like, who cares? Jared Goff's hands were supposedly too small, and that has not stopped him from being an MVP candidate. Arm length is the other one. Aiden Hutchinson's knock was his arm length, and that has not stopped him at all. Sometimes teams will play themselves and draft a guy because he doesn't fit every metric. They want him to fit. Then there are teams like the Lions who don't care about those metrics and only care about the ability to play and help the team. Quote, I don't care what the arm length of a specific player is if he doesn't play like how we need him to play. Then it doesn't fit. That was Brad Holmes back in January, essentially saying that a player could have the longest arms in the world, But if he's not good, then it doesn't matter. That brings us to LSU tackle Will Campbell. You heard about all the arm length stuff last week. His arms measured in at 33 inches long. That's on the smaller side of the measurements, but it's basically the bare minimum for teams. Going into the draft, Campbell has been expected to be the first offensive lineman to come off the board. That's changed a bit recently. Some new mocks have him falling out of the top 10. If that fall continues and the Lions either get a shot at 28 or a shot to move up into the 20s, then it might be worth taking advantage of the other team's mistakes. The Lions don't particularly need a tackle right away because they still have Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker. But here's a chance to get a guy who could replace Decker soon. Campbell is a strong option for the Lions in the first round. We'll see if he falls. What do you think about that, Will?
Okay. Well, I think that if you misinterpret what Brad Holmes said, then yeah, I guess that narrative would fit. But I think that if you look at what Brad Holmes said, they're not going to take a guy that has long arms that doesn't fit their squad, that doesn't fit their scheme, that doesn't fit their mold, if you will. They're absolutely going to take a guy that has the best measurables that also can play the game of football. And I think that that's been evidenced over and over and over again. Matter of fact, Taylor Decker's got 33 3/4 inch arms. Now, Brad Holmes didn't draft him, right? All right. How about, give me a second while I pull this up. Christian Mahogany, 33.5 inch arms. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, that's the bare, that's the bar of entry there. Like 33 1/4, 33.5. For me, 33.5 is like that's the minimum for a tackle. Giovanni Manu.
60 inch.
34 5/8 inch arms. Okay, so that's the most recent two guys that they've drafted.
Yep.
I think I rest my case. They're not gonna take guys that have short arms just because they played well at the collegiate level. If you have short arms as a tackle on the offense, you are not going to be able to engage defensive ends. You're not going to be able to get that first pop. Now, if you have shorter arms but a long wingspan and you can get long, great. But where that inhibits you is you can't get long with both arms at once. You can get long with one, right? You can tap the shoulder, right? And you can play that game, but you can't get long with two. So I don't see anywhere where the Lions are going to take a short arm guy on the offensive line. And I think the reason why they took Aiden Hutchinson, even though he has, a below 1.0 ape index, and I think it's like 31 5/8 inch arms or something like that. I think the reason why they took him is because he had maybe he has a short arm deficiency, but I think that he has more attributes to his game that, they're better, right, than his deficiency. He can make up for it, like his motor, his intelligence, his speed, his height, his tackling ability, whatever. You can point to many different things about Aiden. He has one thing wrong with him: short arms and a bad ape index. But you can point to 5 or 6 or 7 other things that make him different. So even though I use Aiden a lot, it's because it's a great analogy, right? It's a great prospect to kind of compare to other football players. So I don't think that Brad Holmes is going to pass up a good football player with long arms over what essentially might be a quote unquote better football player that has short arms. I don't think that he's going to make that mistake. I really don't. I think you can have short arms in certain positions where it doesn't really affect you. But I think a few of them, corner, I think you need to have longer arms. You absolutely have to. I mean, the longer your arms are, the easier it is to get that hand up in between the ball and bat passes down. Offensive tackle, you have to have longer arms. You can get away with it at center. You can even get away with it at guard. But you can't get away with it on offensive tackle. Defensive end, you really can't get away with it. But defensive tackle, you can kind of get away with it. Linebacker, middle linebacker, you can probably get away with it. Outside linebackers, I would say that you tend to need a little bit longer arm length because you're dropping into coverage. It's situationally dependent. But I don't think that Brad is going to make a mistake like that. He hasn't yet.
Yep. I saw that article and it made me giggle. It made me giggle so hard. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
So it looks like we'll have some time for movie day today if you want to do that.
Are you out of topics for the day?
That's it. That was all 6 of them.
All right. So I do have one thing I want to get into, and that's Alim McNeill. I've been trying to work on this thumbnail while you were talking. So let me pull up Alim McNeill here, and so I kind of dove into, man, what's going to happen with Alim this year, because there's been a lot of conversation, in the chats. I see it all the time, comments, whatever, where people are worried about Alim McNeill, as I am too, and kind of, where does this dictate the Lions drafting? What are they going to do this season to make up for Alim McNeill, because he is a critical piece to this defensive line. He is more of our pass rushing defensive tackle. And I'm not saying pass rush by getting sacks. It's more of getting the pressure on the quarterback that matters the most. And so he's that vehicle, if you will. And without him, well, the Lions went ahead and brought back Levi Onwuzurike, who, to be honest with you, is just as disruptive as Alim McNeill, and maybe even more this season. Because last year, you saw Levi finish as a top 15, top 16, somewhere in that range for pass rush win rate as a defensive tackle, which is incredible for a guy that has pretty much been out of the league for the first 2 or 3 seasons of his career. Very low snap rate. And last year, he just put it all together and figured it out, stayed fairly healthy throughout the year. And now he's going to stack. He's going to stack last year on 2025. And I think he's going to get better. He's going to get back to being the second round pick that Brad probably thought he was. He has to stay healthy. So I started asking myself, what were the most recent defensive tackle injuries, ACL tears? And how did those players perform when they came back? Because I always attribute an ACL or an Achilles injury as a throwaway year in your first year back. Let's throw a couple of cases out there. Jameson Williams, when he came back, right, he suffered his injury. Oh goodness, he suffered his injury when? I think it was October of his final year in college, if memory serves me correct. So he should have been back by October, 12-month injury recovery time. Well, he didn't get back until playing his first game, I want to say until December or late November of his first year. I think he got in 6 games in his first year. Very, very low snap rate. A couple of snaps a game, couple of looks a game. Wasn't a whole lot, right? You could see that maybe there was something there, but it was a throwaway year. And so I'll just use him as an example. But last couple of seasons, we've seen at least 3 defensive tackles since 2023 have ACL tears, which Alim is one of them. But James Lynch, I believe he's now with the Titans. He was injured in August of 2023 during camp. And then he was expected to return to play in September of 2024, which is about a 13-month post-injury rehab process. And when he came back, I mean, obviously he didn't do a whole lot. He's not, like a starting defensive tackle. So maybe it's not the best, analogy or the best player to look at. So then I found another one, Grady Jarrett. So Grady Jarrett was with, let's see, who was he with? Let me pull him back up. So I know he's with the Bears now. I think he was with the Falcons. Let me take a look at his stats here. So, yeah, Grady Jarrett was with the Falcons. He was injured on October 29, 2023. He returned to play in July of 2024, so approximately 9 months after his injury. Games played in 24, 17. So he got in a full season. And then he recently signed, a decent deal with the Chicago Bears. So obviously, there's no worry for Grady Jarrett and what they feel he's going to be able to be for that team. He signed a 3-year, $43.5 million deal. I mean, it's not crazy, right? It's not as good as Alim McNeill's deal, but It's still a pretty sizable contract for a guy that just suffered a major injury, year and a half, 2 years ago. And last year being his full season back in 17 games. Let's take a look at his stats. So on the defensive side of the football here for Grady Jarrett, he appeared in 744 snaps. I mean, he regularly put in 40 plus snaps a game. He was in 275 run defense, 463 pass rush snaps. He logged a 62.1 grade overall by PFF. His tackling rate was terrible at 36. Pass rush was 60.6. Ended up with 34 total pressures on the season. He had 4 sacks, 9 quarterback hits, 21 hurries. So a fairly productive season, but he missed 15.8% of his tackles. He ended up with 28 stops with the Falcons that year. And now he's going to be with the Chicago Bears. So that gives you a little bit of hope. Like that's a pretty good season for a defensive tackle coming back off a pretty bad injury. Would you agree?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I think it's a pretty solid season. And so now you have Alim McNeill. Now he was injured in December, and I think that was week 15 versus the Bills, if memory serves me correct. So his projected return date then is early as September, which would be the 9-month mark, or as late as December, which would be the 12-month mark. And as far as the timeline goes, what's his expected production? Minimal. Coming back into a season where you're missing training camp, I think that's vital. It's not vital for, obviously, his intelligence factor. He knows the defense. He knows how to play football. But you're missing the entire offseason program. So conditioning-wise, he's going to have to do so much more to try to replicate what he's going to miss this summer. And then you're not playing with the guys. So you got some new guys around. You don't know them that well. You haven't played with them on the field. So I think he's going to be a minimal impact, and I hope I'm wrong. But if he does get back, let's just say it's October, November. So he might have a potential to play about 8 games this year, is what I'm thinking. 8 games. And I think that for him to be productive, yeah, it's a couple of sacks, it's 15 pressures and maybe more. But I think that you're probably going to see a little bit more rotation at the defensive tackle position this year than we have in years past. Even when Alim gets back and being fully healthy that we expect him to be, I just see this season as a season where they want him to be right. They signed him to a big deal. At the time, it was a big deal. Why would you want to risk it for one season? I think that the Lions are going to make the smart move here. They're going to double down in the draft, and they're going to get a rookie in, probably early, no later than the 3rd round. But they'll get a defensive tackle early that they can mold and shape to be the next Alim McNeill. And I would say it's going to be a cross between an Alim McNeill and a Levi Onwuzurike as far as height, weight, speed, and ability on the field. That's what they're going to be looking for. Not so much a nose tackle. I think it's going to be more of the pass rush style of defensive tackle. Mekhi Wingo's also coming back later. So we're not going to have either one of those guys probably available to start the season. That's a big loss, but the outlook is good, right? The outlook is good. Grady Jarrett was able to bounce back, had a pretty productive season, but he also was able to get back at the start of July. So he was able to go through the training camp process. Any thoughts by you and any thoughts, comments, obviously in the chat or the comments later?
This is an interesting subject because we have not one, not two, but even more people that have ACLs this year or knees or Achilles or, bone breaks. We got all these guys that we just don't know if all of last year's injuries are going to run into this year. Alim McNeill, you got Rodrigo, you have Khalil Dorsey, you have Hutchinson, and then you have, Mekhi Wingo. Are these guys, that's just 5 guys. Are all 5 of them going to be up and ready to go for the beginning of the season? I say not. There's 3 of them that I think are going to probably go into the season. That's Alim McNeill, Rodrigo on his final year of his contract, and then Mekhi Wingo. I think all 3 of those guys don't even think about having them there for training camp. All three of them, I don't see a single one of them contributing at all in training camp. And I bet all three of those start the year on IR. That's just my personal feeling. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I've been working on trying to get an actual doctor, sports doctor, on the show to talk about it. Hopefully next week.
I could probably get my ortho to come on at some point, but I'll have to have a conversation with him soon. And let me back up on Mekhi Wingo. I'm not to interrupt you, but so Mekhi had the torn meniscus in his knee.
Oh, okay. So he might be better.
He might be able to make the summer program. I mean, I would think that right now that's probably the likely case. But again, I'm wondering what his production is going to be like coming back from that injury. And just like you said, I'm not a doctor. I can only project and guesstimate right now that, it could be a little bit slow going for him. And as a 6th round draft pick, and I'm not going to put him into a box and say, well, you were a 6th round draft pick, you're a nobody. No, I think Mekhi he's going to be an excellent football player. I think he's going to be a hell of a rotational piece on this team and a good quality starter when needed. I just feel like, the Lions they're up against it with a guy they saw a lot of promise in last year, which was Wingo, and Alim McNeill, who's been busting out of his shell year after year after year. And just an absolute dog and a leader on this team. You could see it on Alim's face, how disappointed he was last year, just like anyone, going through an injury like that. But he knew how much he meant to this team and how critical he was needed. I hope he comes back and bounces back big. Same thing for Wingo. I hope he comes back and bounces back big. I just expect Brad to be ready for the other side of that coin, if you will.
Yep. I think there's one thing that's not going to happen this year. Brad Holmes is not going to get caught with his pants down again.
Yeah.
I don't care if we have 20 guys go on IR. He is not going to be unprepared for it. He is super prepared now because of what happened last year.
So, like Motown was bringing up, and Motown, appreciate your compliment, buddy, or comments. I really do. I try to be extremely consistent and transparent. So the take on Hutch and how long it takes to get him back to form and McNeill. So the other side of this equation, the other side of the work that I was doing here with Alim, I couldn't really find a whole lot of case study on Aiden, right? I couldn't find a very similar, broken tibia fibula for a high impact elite defensive end or quasi elite defender. You know how I feel about Aiden. I feel like he's just on the outside scratching that bark to get in, right? I put these guys in the same box. We've heard that there's no ligament damage. We've heard that there's no nerve damage. Now, if I were to use myself as a case study, I'll tell you that after I had my major back surgery, I felt better immediately. And then 9 months later, all of a sudden, everything erupted inside my body. My leg to this day, like I wake up multiple times in the night where I'm in a full cramp. I'll just be sitting watching a movie or watching news, whatever I'm doing. And all of a sudden my leg is fully locked out, right? It's like erect and straight and your foot's all messed up. And I got to get off the couch or I'm in a recliner. So imagine you slowly get back down, right? And then you got to hop up and you got to jump up against the wall or a table or something and get stretched out. So 9 months later, I started having all of these nerve issues that I didn't have before. Now I had drop foot and all that, and this is a back injury. So this kind of more relates to Levi. But I didn't expect to have those issues because I was feeling great. And now, multiple years later, it's worse than it ever was before. So those kinds of things that I know personally have happened to me, and I'm not playing football, right? I'm not putting my body under immense pressure. I'm not out there, banging hundreds of pounds of weight. I'm 44 years old and lazy, if you will, to a degree. I'm not out there doing what I used to do. So I just know that freak things can happen. I know that injuries suck and little things can totally change. What I saw from Aiden running, I wasn't as impressed, but we don't see what he's doing behind the scenes. We have no clue. What Brad said was favorable. right? That he's seen enough with Aiden's running and some of the training that he's been doing, but we haven't seen Aiden under pressure, right? We haven't seen him taking on a 325-pound lineman, which when he has to anchor and you're trying to anchor and you're pushing, 300 plus pounds, it's also pushing all their weight against you and all their strength. That's when that leg is going to take the most pressure. And so we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how he's going to respond. And I honestly don't feel like anyone's going to give us the truth about any nerve damage. How could he not have had any nerves impacted? You know how many nerves are running through that area? I mean, there's a ton, but just the peroneal nerve is enough that branches and runs through all out the calf and where I have my problem, on the side of on the knee as a distal. I think it's the distal side of the knee that it runs through. And then down and branches all the way down. That stems all the way from the back through the sciatica nerve that branches into all these other nerves, right? That sciatica is huge, right? And it branches all the way. How could you not have impacted some nerves? You had to have. I mean, that leg snapped and broke through the skin. It had to have impacted some. Whether it was a big enough nerve to cause an issue or not, we don't know. We'll never know. I hope for Aiden's sake that he's good to go. But I'm going to be reserved. And I'm going to be reserved because I don't want to be let down, right? I think Aiden's going to be just fine eventually. But then again, this year, are we really expecting him to bounce back? I hope he does. But are we really expecting him to be a double-digit sack guy and, 70 pressures and being who he was before the injury happened? I'm going to be reserved on that. That's my opinion. Eric is the guy to give you all the roses, rainbows, and now marshmallows. So I'll wait. I'm the wait and see approach guy. It is what it is for me.
Yep.
It is what it is until it's not, right? That's it. That's just the way it is for me.
Yeah. We're definitely going to have to take a wait and see approach on all these injuries and see just what's going to happen. I'm sure Brad has a plan, something that he's not privy to let us look at. But I know that this is beyond prepared him for the future.
Yeah. Look, Aiden is from what we know, right? From what we read. I don't know Aiden personally. I've never had a conversation with him. But everything that you've read and anything that you've heard, from his teammates, his former coaches, Aiden is going to put 1,000% into everything. The work that he is doing off the field when nobody is looking is the most important. He wants to be the best. And guys that want to be the best, that are putting in the work, those are the guys that you trust are going to be able to do it. Aiden's going to be able to do it. The only thing that Aiden can't do anything about is his body. Like he can't fix something that's broke that can't be fixed. Like if there's nerve damage, you can't really fix it. Now they're going to install a spine stimulator in me here in a few weeks or a month, whatever. And yeah, we'll see what that does. But again, it's not fixing anything. It's dumbing the nerves down and making them not react, the way that they're reacting. So that's just the one thing no football player can do anything about. And unfortunately, you either got to live with it and play through it, and either it affects you or it doesn't. At the end of the day, everything that we've read and heard about Aiden is positive so far. So let's just keep the positivity rolling, and hopefully we see him back in the saddle, banging away on these quarterbacks in 25. So let's get to movie day. Is that where we're going now?
That sounds great.
All right, so we didn't get a chance to review Dan Campbell and the conversation that was had down at the league meetings, which, man, it seems like very, very short meetings down there, 2-3 days, whatever it was. So let's dig into it now, and let's listen to what Dan Campbell had to say. Oh, looks like I already got it queued up. Look at that.
All right, how we doing? Good. I think we just start this off with questions, man. It's been a good off season. Brad and I are just like every year, man. We've assessed the roster, assessed the season, take a look at it, and we like where we're headed. You know, a lot of this is about signing our own guys back, which is the reason we drafted them, or we signed them before as free agents. We've done that. We've added to that. Obviously, DJ Reed and Lopez and Stewart, you know, from elsewhere to come in. They fit us, what we're about. And we're fired up, man, getting ready for the draft, as always. Find the guys we love that are right for us and move along. You're saying from a coaching standpoint? Yeah, I mean, continuity is always good because, you know, every year you kind of learn what each other wants and how they work, how they function, and then you can move without saying a word. You know, and so that's important. It helps with efficiency, but yet, man, that's part of it to get to that point. We'll be fine. We'll be fine, man. You know, everybody knows how I feel about these coaches that have been here and been part of this. I'm happy for them. They're moving on. And I wish them the best, but man, like John Morton, man, stepping in an offensive coordinator, somebody I know, I trust, I've been around. I mentioned this before. He was here when we built this thing back up in 22. And then Kelvin Shepard's been here, man. So it's not like it'll be starting from scratch or somebody that I don't know or he knows me. And so I see this thing moving pretty quick. There'll be a couple of bumps in the road. We'll have to work out some kinks, but it'll be kind of fresh and new, actually, and I think we're all excited to that.
Actually talking about this last year, I mean, like, was there any challenges in motivating at the same level when you guys have been here in the message 3 or 4 years?
No, well, I think that's why you got to get the right guys, man, you know, and look, I said this from the get-go. You know, my job is I'm to be the leader of this team until they're ready to take it over themselves. And they're ready to take this over. Every year has gotten more and more where our leaders, St. Brown, Sewell, Goff, Hutch, Alex, have begun to take this thing over. And that's so now you don't have to worry about my voice. You know what I mean? It's their voice. They're the ones who set the tone for the team. And so, no, I think we're in a good spot. We got guys that are hungry. They're the reason why we bring them in, because they're the right guys. They don't get complacent, and they're going to go back for some more.
Okay, so that nice face, right. I stopped it. Dan Campbell is off in the woods with Aaron Rodgers. It looks like. I'm just kidding. So I love that statement by Dan right there, where he says, you know, this is my team until it's not. And the fact that he's turning this team over every single season to the leaders on this team, man, does that not speak volumes about the type of characters that they brought in and the trust factor that they built with their leaders, right? Not just the captains, but the leaders on this team. There's more leaders than just the captains. The captains are the guys that are out in front, but there's multiple leaders on this team. And I'm excited again this season to see where that develops. It's going to be a fun ride. But Eric, what was your quick takeaway on that statement by him?
Just like we were saying earlier, that Goff's going to have more control at the line of scrimmage. I think the entire team's going to have more control. Not just Goff, all of them. You know, I think St. Brown will have more to say in this offense this year. And Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery might have a few more words to say on what happens with Johnny Morton and David Shaw. So this is going to be a very unique season. I think what he has been building over the course of the last 4 years, and now this is the 5th year, is a team that can basically run itself. You don't have to worry about people because they're all on the same page and they're putting it together. Let the players do the game plan for Arizona next week.
Yeah, that'd be great, huh? That'd be fun.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Give them more empower. He's empowering his people, and I love it. That's the right kind of boss right there.
Yeah, you're putting the season on the players. Like they have to want it, right? They have to want it. And then the more that they're responsible for the outcome, the less blame there is to go around. They're going to blame themselves. They're going to make sure that it doesn't happen again if something happens and goes wrong. I get what he's saying. I really do. I think it is the right way to run a football team, that you're really trying to make sure that these guys can lead from the front. Dan can focus on what he needs to focus on, which is running the team, and not all of the little things from day to day where his leaders can handle that. But we'll keep going here.
The situation at defensive line with some of the guys,
Yeah, look, for where we're at right now, we're excited. You know, we really got everybody back that we wanted to get. We thought it was important that we were, you know, trying to make the most of what you have in free agency. But to get Davenport back, certainly Hutch is coming back off injury. What we did with Mac early in the fall, you know, we added Lopez to Reader, you know, until we get those guys back. Wingo's on injury, but then we feel good about where we're at, man. And we're not done either. You know, that's the point. We're not done. And we don't know when. We don't know. Maybe it will be the draft. I mean, we're looking at everything. It could be after the draft, you know. It could be any time. But at this point, with where we're at, we like where we're at. Getting Levi back was big, you know. So.
You guys, you run about it, kind of seems like immediate culture fits when we talk to them. How have you refined your culture year over year? What have you learned? What have you tweaked or fighting?
I don't know if I've tweaked anything. You know, I think if anything, it's just been, I feel like the thought process has been cemented every year. It's, you know, this thing is cured over time. Like it has stood the test of time. The kind of guys that you need to go get, you know, everybody, of course you need to get productive players, man. You can be tough as nails and do all these things or play a certain way, and if you can't run, or you're not very strong, or you don't have any size, or you don't have, then no, you can't play in this league. Doesn't matter who you are. But man, if you've got some tools and you've got some talent, but you've got a little bit of this chip on your shoulder, and you're a guy who believes you can do it in this league, and it doesn't matter if you don't have the big name or the flash or the most money, then you belong here, and because you can play. But that's big for us. That's a part of who we are. Guys like that. It's one of the reasons we brought in Stewart too, man. This guy flies under the radar. This guy's an unbelievable special teams player, and he can play defense too. So, and maybe offense.
Dan, a lot of people talk about it with Ben leaving the offense.
All right, hold on. Grant Stewart can play offense, so I'm going to throw out my projection on this right away. H-back. Grant Stewart might be an H-back in our system this year. I could see it happening. I can't say that I've watched any tape on it, but I'm just going to take a wild guess and say that H-back might be a good fit for Grant Stewart. We'll see what happens.
It's going to change, but this is a Dan Campbell offense as much as it's a Ben Johnson offense, isn't it?
Well, this is a Detroit line offense, is what it is. And, you know, I mentioned it. I was talking to Dan yesterday. I mentioned this. And here, the nuts and bolts of what we are, man, of course, we got our coaches. Man, this offense is Jared Goff, St. Brown, Gibbs, Montgomery. It's Frank, it's Sewell, it's Decker, I can keep going, it's J-Mo. All right, the defense is Hutch, it's Alim, it's freaking Alex, it's TA, right? It's Kirby, it's Branch, it's now Reed. I can keep going. It's Barnes, you know, and so that's what we are. All right, we can say, well, this is our scheme, this is what we run. This is no. They're the ones who make it what it is. So that's our playbook. It's those guys.
What do you want to see from Jared Goff in terms of growth this year?
Growth? He continues to grow every year, and I'd say the next step for him. And he knows this, and every year, like last year, he came to us, everything we wanted him to do in the offense, he did, and then he began to bring stuff to us as to, hey, man, I can see this look, you know, let me get to this play. I know I've got these options in the bag, but let me get to this as well, right? Those are the things where he's, okay, here we go, man, that's beginning to show, and I would anticipate that to take another step up.
Can you run us through a couple of your top positions? Reed, Stewart,
Lopez?
What you saw in them that made them fit for you and how you envision using them?
Yeah, well, for what they're asked to do, they're all three competitive, productive players. And I think it's just, man, it's the way they play the game, right? They don't back down from anybody. Let's start with Reed, man. Reed, he's got cover ability. He can play man-to-man, start there, but then he'll bite on the perimeter, right? He'll come up, he'll tackle, he'll squeeze the edges. And then when you see him in press, man, he challenges, right? He's not giving you free releases. Now, he'll mix it up. And then he'll challenge it to catch point. Man, he's feisty, he's competitive. One of the best things I saw, I told him this, man, they're playing, it was early in the year, it was crossover tape. He got beat on a play. He actually got beat, all right? And to watch him put his foot in the ground, kind of stumble out, one of the rare, you know, times you get beat, but you get beat at corner. right? That's part of this league. He gets beat, he puts his foot in the ground, and I mean, he is on an all-line. He doesn't have time to think about it, recover. He's just on a beeline to try to angle this guy off. And I thought that was one of the most impressive things, man. This guy he didn't go in the tank. He's not worried about what it looks like. He's just trying to compete and win. And he lines up.
Okay, so who do we think he's talking about here, Eric? Did you ever give this any thought?
TA.
No. I think he's talking about DJ Reed here.
Oh, DJ Reed.
Yeah. So, but what I'm saying is that the play that I think he's talking about, if you remember, there was a play that Jared Goff early, gosh, it might have been 23. It was a deep bomb. Goff threw from like the 55-yard line, or he backed from the 55, tossed it at the 50. J-Mo was running a seam route on the left side of the offense, and then he pushed off just slightly on a corner, and his name is DJ Reed. It might have been 23. I don't remember if we played the Jets that year, but it could have been. So DJ Reed puts his foot in the ground and goes up and makes the play where everyone said, oh, Jared Goff underthrew him. No, if you go back and watch the video that I did on that, I said, man, that's a hell of a play by the corner. He went and made that play. Jared put that ball right between those guys, put that ball where nobody else could get it other than J-Mo, and DJ Reed come up and swatted that ball away. Incredible play. I think that's who he's talking about. Now, I could be missing something here, but that's just what came to mind.
Up and goes back for more, and that says it all. He's got the attributes, he's got the skill level, but man, he's feisty, he's competitive, he doesn't get down, man. And I would say Lopez is the same thing, right? Lopez he's a down and dirty. Doesn't mean he can't play third down, but he lives in base a lot, man. He's taking on the double teams. He's keeping people off the backers. He can get an edge on you, and he'll just do it time out, time in, time out again, over and over. And one of the things that impressed me about him was when we played him. I mean, him going against Frank all day. We ran the heck out of the ball, but man, that guy held his own now, and we got a pretty damn good center. So that was impressive, that among others, and then I already mentioned Stewart. Stewart can do it all, man. He's the guy that's been counted out, but just continues to make plays in this league. He's a dynamic special teams player, in my opinion, and he can play defense. I mean, he played defense against us. Say it again. Yeah, well, we'll find out on the grass. I mean, like right now, I have no idea until we get on the grass. So I'll be able to tell you that probably September. I don't know, maybe late September, but.
How quickly did you guys get back to work after? Obviously, it was a tough loss. How quickly did you and Brad get right back to work? Just talk about that relationship. How has it grown to where, okay, we know what we want to do this offseason? How's that grown between y'all, like the offseason communications?
Well, for me, whatever that was, when I got done with the closing press conference, I was already on. I'm on to the next thing. So, and then I can tell you, Brad he was already well within, kind of the prep of these college 2025 draft. So he'd kind of been in it, So we say every year about that time, it's like tag your it, So it was tag your it, but then I'm into the phase of finding the next batch of coaches or promoting or whatever that is, and so you go right into it. You don't have time to really digest all those things of the last game. But what I do know is you got to be careful if you say. You come out of it and you say, man, what's wrong? What's wrong with us? We did it right. We had 15 wins in a season. We played bad at the wrong time, and so careful tweaking things. What you got is good enough. We just gotta, we gotta play better in that moment. But it also means we can't stay the same. We all know that. That's not good.
Okay, Eric, this was pretty impactful. So again, we've spoken about this a lot, that we felt that if you get the same team back, you're going to have your best shot at playing better than what you did the season before. And maybe I should rewind it a little bit, but what Dan is saying here is, man, we just played bad at the wrong time. And I think he's really trying to give a lot of credit to the team, because there was more than just playing bad at the wrong time, from my opinion. I feel like this was a culmination, like Rod Wood said, 17 guys on IR at the Commanders game. That's a tough hill to climb. And yeah, were you playing bad versus the Commanders? Yup. Dan's not throwing anybody under the bus of play calling here. He's not going to do that. I'll do that for him. There was some terrible play calling in that game. But did they really play bad, or were they just up against it, man? And I feel like they were up against it. But the thing that he pointed out that everyone should take to heart here is they had the team. Why would you want to screw that up? Which is exactly what he said. Be careful of changing things now. You don't want to change anything. You want to get back, but yes, you want to get better. You can't be the same. You have to get better, which is what they're going to do through free agency process as well as the draft. Eric, what's your take on it?
Listen, the Detroit Lions put up 31 points in a loss to the Washington Commanders. How many times did they put up 31 points and lose last year? Well, they did it against the Bills. They did it against the Commanders, and I don't remember the Bucs game exactly what it was. So that's 2 games last year where I know for sure they lost after putting up 31 points. That's pretty darn good. So I don't think this was so much on the offense as it was on the defense on this one. And the only reason it's on the defense is because the second play of the game, we lost Amik Robertson. And for weeks before, we lost all these other players, 17, 18 on IR heading into this game. And then you add Amik Robertson on it. It was just devastation. It was like all the stars aligned for us to lose this game. And it happened right from the very beginning of the game. And the offense tried to pull us back out of it. And then I think there was just some boneheaded moves by both coordinators. You know, AG was stubborn with this whole, we're going to play man coverage and we're going to blitz every single play. And then Ben Johnson was stubborn, and on 3rd and 1 from their own 17, he decides to go empty backfield, and Amon-Ra St. Brown slips. And Jared Goff ends up throwing an interception. So it just...
I'm glad you pointed out the fact that Amon-Ra slips. I think a lot of people forget just what went down on some of these plays, and they want to blame Jared Goff for everything. And I'll always say this, man, this is a freaking team game. And you know what? Yeah, maybe there's some things that Jared Goff did that he shouldn't have done. Absolutely. But if you get back a couple of those interceptions, this is a drastically different game. If you get a couple of calls that weren't called, it's a drastically different game. And the Lions could have limped out of this with a win. I'll still stick to my guns and say they lose the next week. I know that's a crap take to say from a Lions fan's perspective, but from my got to keep it honest perspective, I just don't think that we would have had enough against the Eagles because we had, Amik was gone and just too many injuries, and you can't add anybody, so it was just too much.
Yeah, the Eagles got strong down the stretch, and we just had a comedy of errors. That's all you can call it, is a comedy of errors. It just, like, all the stars aligned for us to lose that game.
Yeah. I mean, it was a tough season for us.
It was everything. It wasn't just one player. It was Amon-Ra slipping. It was Jared Goff throwing an interception. It was Ben Johnson doing an empty backfield on 3rd and 1. It was Aaron Glenn with all of his boneheaded moves on defense. It was Amik Robertson breaking his arm. It was the fans in the stands. It was all these preppy people that didn't even wear a
the fair weather fans.
They didn't even wear a damn Lions jersey to a Lions playoff game.
Right. Yeah. It was comical, wasn't it? It's comical.
Yeah. They're wearing a North Face jacket. I'm like, oh yeah, great that you're wearing a pink North Face jacket to a Lions game. Thanks a lot for supporting our team. Come on.
You may not be able to afford a Lions jersey, but at least go get a $26 shirt at Meijer.
Something. Come on. Everything about that day still irks me to this day. So, like Dan Campbell talked about in one of these videos about, does this one feel different than last year in San Francisco? And to me as a fan, it's completely 180 degrees different. This one was hard. This one stung so effing bad. The one in San Francisco, I mean, I went right home and I rewatched the game 1,000 times because we got out to this awesome big lead. And yes, we collapsed at the end. But man, our team showed that we deserve to be in the Super Bowl. Yeah. This year, we didn't show squat.
No, and I think the injuries finally got to us, like we've talked about. It was just too much at the wrong time. So, all right, we'll keep going here.
For anybody.
So last week the NFL said they were going to kind of crack down on some of the taunting penalties, the more violent, more obscene gestures type of thing. How do you, as a coach,
And uniform.
Uniform. How do you, as a coach, get that message across to every player? Like we can't do this stuff because it hurts us.
Yeah, I mean, you tell them. I think there'll be certainly there'll be penalty for them, and those are always the ones you can easily coach off of. It's the ones in the pocket, so they're going to start finding, they'll find everybody, the player, but more importantly, if the player doesn't get that, then it goes to the head coach and the owner. Everybody gets a piece of that fine. So, and so look, you just say, look, this is what they're trying to do away with, and you just show them, and you don't do it. That's probably the best way to say it, And then at some point, I guess if it's coming out of my pocket enough, then you just don't play the guy, I guess. I don't.
I didn't know that Dan Campbell got to share the fines. So, yeah, that's big. You just don't do it. Eventually, he's not going to play the guys. That's interesting to me.
I don't know.
Dan, I got a New York-based question. With AG, obviously he's walking into a situation where they've been losing for several years. What is it about his personality and his coaching style that you think can maybe flip it there with the Jets?
Yeah, well, look, I think look, in my opinion, you got to be able to do what you need to do to build it from the ground up. AG's been around some phenomenal coaches, and I'm not talking about me. That's not Bill Parcells, Sean Payton. I mean, this guy gets it. He's been around the best at building and sustaining. So, you need a leader, man. You need a leader, and you need a guy who can hold people accountable. I'm talking about top down. Has a vision for where you want to go and allow him to do that. And he's got every bit of that. And so as long as he's got the support, AG will turn that thing around. There's no question, man. All right, he's an unbelievable leader. He's an even better person, and he's the type of guy that makes people want to rally around him and do things to help him have success. So he's going to bring the right type of people around him. He's already done it with the coaches, and he'll bring the right kind of players. And I just, look, if he can't, nobody can. That's my opinion.
Dan, with Graham, maybe didn't finish the season, but he was battling through some things. What's your confidence level that Graham can rebound and 25?
Yeah, well, look, Graham, we know where Graham is at. Every year, certainly, you play that position, and it's a year later, But Graham's somebody that we still value because he's got versatility, And look, he did. He started the whole season, other than whatever that was, game that we let him recover from injury at guard. But he can also play center. I think people forget that some. Man, he can do an excellent job at center, as a matter of fact. So I think there's things that he brings to us that are not always easy to find. So yeah, we have confidence in him. And there again, the fact that he can play all the positions, man, that lets you breathe easy.
Do you envision him going back to right guard this year?
I don't know. I don't know. That's a thought, man. We've talked about that. Do you go back to right, and is it Mahogany left? Is it somebody we drafted? You're going to do your best to let these guys compete and see where they're at. I mean, do we try Manu at guard? That's a thought.
I love it.
So we're going to try to, we're going to try to let these guys compete a little bit and move them around and see what's right, see where we're at. But it's not going to be set in stone.
How much did Manu play last year?
I mean, it was only scout team, and it wasn't a lot of it. It would be, that would be a, you're going to kind of take a leap of faith and push those reps and see if he can grow from them. Do you do that or do you keep him outside? Those are just some of the thoughts that we've had. So.
How do you see Ennis fitting into the secondary this year?
Say it again.
How do you see Ennis Rakestraw fitting into the secondary this year?
Yeah, well, look, I've said this before. You, as an NFL player, most of the time, the biggest jump you make of growth is between year one and year two, and so he's going into year two. He had a couple of injuries that took him off the field, which is unfortunate because he was going to the game, and he was helping us a little bit on teams, which is good. And so I would anticipate this guy takes another step up, man. And we're not down on him. We're not disappointed. We expect him to go in there and compete, man. And look, there is nothing set in stone. I mean, look, you draft guys where you do, and you sign guys according to what you believe they're going to be for you. But you also, the best man's going to play. So he's very much in that mix.
So Kaminsky retired yesterday too.
I'm sorry.
We saw Kaminsky retire yesterday too. Just your thoughts on that and retiring young.
Yeah, man, Kamish, man, that was a heck of a find by Brad. Being able to get Kamish. He was part of this deal. Back in 22, late 21, 22. And 23, and he was that. I mean, he was kind of the model of what we were early in this thing. And the value that he brought to us, the type of teammate he was, the type of player that he was, that'll be missed, man. And it's unfortunately it's part of this game. You get these injuries, and some of them it's just hard to recover from. So I wish him the best of luck, certainly, and love him to death, man. He was the best, and but that's part of the tough side of this game is the injuries.
Dan, a lot of people in Detroit are very obsessed with Aiden Hutchinson. The backup quarterback is always a big situation. You guys said Kyle Allen. What can you tell fans, the Hendon Hooker fans out there? Is he your number 2 going in, and hopefully Florida?
Well, yeah, I would say that Hooker, no different than Allen, are competing. And the best way to help guys really reach their full potential is competition. You can say things, you can try to, the best you can prop them up, but at some point, man, you just got to go compete, and it's him or you, and I anticipate Hooker's going to compete. That's what he does. So, and I would see him taking another step up.
Eric, what's your thoughts on the whole Hendon Hooker thing here?
I believe that Hooker maybe just wasn't quite ready at the end of the season last year. You got to remember, he was only in for a little bit in the preseason. He took a few snaps during the season in blowouts. He never really got a chance to show what he could do. So the Lions looked at it like, hey, we're going to bring in Teddy Bridgewater. He's going to start the playoff game as the backup just in case. They just don't know what they have yet. He needs some more time. He missed his whole first year. He's only had one training camp. Give him more than just one training camp. Give him another one. Give him all the OTAs. Give him every rep you can. Maybe he had some difficulty learning this actual pro system versus what they ran in Tennessee.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I also feel like you don't want to see your backup. There's a reason why you want Jared Goff in and not Hendon Hooker. Like, the goal is not to put Hendon Hooker in. He wasn't drafted to replace Jared Goff. Bringing in these guys to compete, yeah, they want to make sure that Hendon isn't complacent. They want to make sure that he's ready. And the best way to do that is to put good guys around him, put some competition around him, and force him to become better, force him to become great. But like Dan said, he expects Hendon Hooker to compete. I think we all expect that.
Can you just explain the thought process behind those two specifically?
Well, the second and, excuse me. All right, the illegal contact defensive holding, automatic first down. I think really I felt like where those were most glaring for us is we had a number of the, second 16, second 12, second 10, second 10, second 10, second 9, third and 8. And those specifically, forget the first downs. Our rule with first down, it'd be 1st and 5 now instead of 5 yards. That's actually better offensively, by the way. But it's more when you're in those that I just mentioned, the second long, the third, and the contact happens 6 yards down the field. And it's on a scramble, which 4 of those were. You're like, man, that seems unfair, right? Why not just 5-yard penalty and let's replay the down, And so that was really, for me, I know that's where that came up. And it's really that kind of that little bit of the area, these longer yardage situations where, and I'm not talking about the blatant, this is a clear hold. He's 10 yards downfield, but we had a number of these that really were like that. His contacts happen to play 6 yards downfield and it's second 12, or it just, man, that doesn't seem right.
How are those discussions going? Do you get a sense of that like the past now?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel great about it, but we'll see. I'll try to pitch it today. Hey, hold on a minute. Is that what you just asked? Yeah, and that's been an ongoing discussion. That'll be interesting to see how that goes in here. I think it's got some legs, but I do know that a few things have been brought up to, hey, when you win your division, or you end up Well, you do. You get the first place schedule. So you play these first place schedules, and then it doesn't seem fair. Somebody else is playing a last place schedule, and they end up with a record better than yours, and then they get a home game. You don't. You won your division, which that makes sense too, you know. But I know it's got legs. There's been a lot of debate over it, and we'll see.
What do you say on the two-sport debate?
Yeah, I'm like, for me, I'm like, hey man, they like Philly obviously is known for this because, you know, they're the ones who've really kind of perfected it and done it, do it over and over. And I'm like, man, good for them. And if you got something, we got to stop it. So, like, to me, leave it in. And, you know, we play them this year. We got to find a way to stop it. And I like that. So.
I want to circle back to Alim McNeill real quick, too. Just when is it realistic to expect him back? And just by missing, you know, most of the offseason, can he take a step forward? How does he take a step forward still to, you know, give you what you need?
Yeah. It's tough to say right now when Mac will be back. You know, ACLs are all a little bit different. You know, obviously it's not going to be training camp, you know, or probably even early part of the season, but we will get him back. And I think the big thing here is, man, get him back healthy where he feels good, he can move, you know, obviously protect himself but still be productive. And I think more than anything, you want him getting back to where he felt like he was before the injury. That's important, at least for this year. Because that'll be plenty. That'll be plenty.
Remember your first impressions of Terrell Williams?
Yeah. Yeah, so I worked with Terrell. Actually, all right, you give first impressions. All right, first impressions is way back at Texas A&M University. He was working for Mike Sherman. He was the defensive line coach, and I went down just to I just finished playing in the NFL and wanted to be in the whole coaching realm, and that was the first time I met him. And I remember watching him around his guys in this defensive line and in the staff meetings, thinking how impressive he was. Like, this guy is, you know, he understands scheme, highly intelligent, but then, man, he understands personality of players. Like, to watch him, he treated every player different, man. And some guys he prodded, some guys he loved up, some guys he would just simply walk and whisper in their ear, and then to watch him go, like, he's got a knack about understanding how to make people go, and not everybody's the same. So, unbelievable dude, unbelievable human being, great teacher. Anyway, we're going to miss him.
That one stung.
Same thing. Look, he's very detailed, organized. I know he and Vrabel have been working hand in hand, and so it's about standing up in front of that room, making sure everything's organized. This is how we want to do things, guys. We're all on the same page, and then motivating them to do it, or pulling the most out of each guy. That's what he's been doing. Now he's just doing it with a bigger group. That's actually great, man. So he's going to do great.
They're taking a more unorthodox route to becoming a head coach. Most guys are either a quarterback whisperer or defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
What do you think was key to your elevation?
I guess I'm just a whisperer. No, look, things, as you know, Omar, things worked out. That it just kind of, look, I would have never been in this position had I not become an interim head coach. I don't think I'm sitting here had that not happened. You get 12 games in season of experience, and that was critical to me. And that was one of those weird oddball situations. It was actually unfortunate because people are losing their jobs. But I think you make the most of it, and I think people take notice, and then it just kind of goes from there. So I was, you know, for me, that it worked out that way. That's the best I can tell you. And then I was fortunate to get back with Sean Payton. That was huge.
Yeah.
It was huge because there was a lot of things that I was able to, you know, he filled in a lot of the pieces for me, you know. And when you're in that, you go to the interim, you're head coach. You don't know what you don't know. And then once you've been exposed to it, then you know what questions to ask. You know what you're looking for. So then when I go with Sean, that's all I'm looking for is like, all right, if I was a head coach and I'm watching Sean or I asked Sean these questions, man, that helped. That was unbelievable.
And I want to ask you about Melifonwu in terms of what does he bring to the defense?
Who's that?
Melifonwu.
Oh, yeah. Look, the only thing that's happened with Iffy for us was he had some injuries at times that would just, you know. But when we had him and when he was on the field and he was able to really bang reps and bank a lot of time with, man, he's a productive player. You know, this guy is, and he's a defensive back. Like I wouldn't say that he's a safety. He's a defensive back. You know, he can play really dime linebacker. He can play the safety position, play corner. He can pressure. He's a matchup piece in coverage. And so, you know, if he was one of our original draft picks, man, in 21. So wish him the best. You guys are going to love him down there. And
all right. right, so let me give you guys a little bit of a nugget here that will be coming up in my next mock draft. Possibly it'll make it into the final mock draft. So there is a player in this draft by the name of Emanwari, safety. He's like 235 pounds, right? He's like 6'3". You just heard Dan say, and by the way, the fact that Dan's given all this love to Melifonwu, I mean, it shows that, of course, they didn't want to lose the guy, but the injuries for them just became too much. Obviously, they needed to step away and do something different. But that just shows the true nature of who Dan Campbell is by, he's still promoting this kid, this guy, young man, whatever man that Melifonwu is. The point that I'm going to make, though, is you just heard him say that if he could play the dime linebacker position. So when I kept saying this offseason, I would love to see the Lions get a guy like Emanwari that can play in the small linebacker role. That's exactly why. It's that position that I think that Emanwari will be able to fill on this squad, and you might see the Lions in a little bit more of a dime look on third downs when you do have a guy like him on the roster. They can play corner, they can play safety, they can play linebacker. They can be a run game nightmare for opposing offenses. So I think that it's just a little nugget that I'm going to share with you guys today, that when I evaluate guys, this is what I see. Like, these are the things that I'm looking at. Like, what did the Lions do situation in the last year? What type of guys would fit that role? Well, Nick is someone that can fit that role.
He'll be a productive player.
Dan, bringing Davenport back, the guy gets injured historically. How tough is that to get away from that stigma for a player?
Yeah.
How much is that in your mind about bringing it back?
Yeah, I mean, look, those are things that always weigh. We think it weighs on us. It weighs on the player, too. But you want to know, I think for us, that he still wants to go. Like, man, I'm willing to attack this, continue to get better, which he has. And I think, as long as he's willing to make another push, believes that he can get this done, and we feel like the rehab and everything has gone well, we think this will heal, everything's right about it, then yeah, we feel good, And for what, as long as, if it goes the way we think it's going to go, Davenport is going to be a hell of a player.
Dan, you guys have been aggressive in paying your own players, extending them early. What goes into that process, and then how does that sort of affect your future planning with having to hit on the draft for cost reasons?
Well, look, there's a reason why we draft the guys that we do. It's because they fit us. And when you're able to, the hardest thing about free agency is not knowing guys. You don't have a history with them. You don't know they don't know how they are when they have an injury, how it pertains to practicing, what they're like after losses, what they're like after wins, what they're like when they do something wrong, you get after them. All these things. But your guys that you picked and drafted for a reason, you're with them 3, 4, 5 years. Like, that's huge. That's huge. And so absolutely we're going to sign those guys back. They're us. They're our guys. And so I think if anything, it just helps you see the future. You have an idea of those guys that belong here long term, and it just means that it's not going to be as flashy outside of your own group, right? And you forget that sometimes an early signing is really free agency, Like we signed Alim McNeill last year in the fall. He was really going to be a free agent, but we got it done before.
Just to stay with the draft first, how is your role changed now that you guys are picking later in the draft? You spend less time on the road, and you focus on guys later in the draft, and with the new staff, I wonder if that changes too, to get the inside more to work on your own stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if it's really changed. Well, yeah, that obviously, yes, that portion of the fact that we are picking later now, so I think, I know for myself and the coaches, we don't focus as much on these guys you think are going to fall in the top 10, top 15 maybe. Now, doesn't mean Brad doesn't and his crew, but that takes a little bit off of us, and it's like, hey, let's look at this focus between, these picks here and this round, and really focus on this clump of guys, whatever this is. And that just makes our time more efficient, helps us, and kind of keeps everybody where they need to be. I do, but I'm not going to say yet, because it seems like every year I've done that, right? It's been this explosion. It's like, hey, I wish you would have told us before you did that, because we haven't told our media. And I'm like, all right. So, yeah, we got something in the works. We'll see what happens. Hopefully 2.
Quick Jets question. Did anybody catch the question there? Eric, did you catch the question there, what he was talking about?
No, I couldn't hear it.
Oh, there's something wrong with your audio too.
Uh-oh.
Oh, now I hear you just fine. That's weird. When I have it minimized, it's like all weird. Yeah, I couldn't hear that question either. I want to try to listen to it again.
I do, but I'm not going to say yet because it seems like every year a bit off of us, and it's like, hey, let's look at this focus between these picks here and this round, and really focus on this clump of guys, whatever this is. And that just makes our time more efficient, helps us, and kind of keeps everybody where they need to be. I do, but I'm not going to say yet because it seems like every year I've done that, right? It's been this explosion. It's like, hey, I wish you would have told us before you did that because we haven't told our media.
The whole question, it just goes inaudible. Like you hear nothing. It's almost like it was erased.
Jets question. Aaron Glenn brings over Tanner and also Steve Hyden.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about them and what you think is next for them as far as their new positions?
Yeah, well, critical pieces to what we were and what we were able to do here offensively. Tanner's been shooting coach tight ends, and then he was our pass game coordinator. Last couple of years, and then Steve Hyden, obviously tight end coach. Both of those guys moving over. Both of them ready to make that move, and they always had critical input on the run game and the pass game for us. Game planning, all of those are great with the players. And look, Tanner's got, he's got some experience. He does. I mean, he's called plays before. It hasn't been in the NFL, but he's done this and he's organized game plans. He helped Ben a ton. Help me. He's an upbeat guy, man. He's the same, and I would say that about both of them. They're the same guys every day. They don't go down, they're not up, they're not down. They're the same guys, and they're real positive, role models to be around, and they're gonna be great out there.
Dan,
they're AG's type of guys.
Yeah, speaking of AG, can you speak to his skills as a teacher and a developer?
Yeah, I mean, I think it speaks for itself. If you just go pull up anything that he's done here and just watch him, I mean, it's all over the internet. This he's an unbelievable teacher. He's a motivator. He's all about the details, and he's about accountability. Like he's not, look, if he's got something on his mind, he's no different than I am, then he's going to say it. He's not going to just, you're brushing it under the rug or sweeping it under the rug. Like he's going to let you know this is a problem, and I think that's important. Sometimes it gets lost, and everybody just assumes that if you're holding people accountable, that means you're being an asshole. That's not what that means. It means I'm telling you that I don't like what you're doing.
Right there. That's crazy.
Like that in my face. I'm telling. No, I'm just messing with you. But anyway, that's yeah. Go ahead.
You've seen Ben grow to the position that he's in now in Chicago. Why is he going to succeed with the Bears?
Well, you look, he always asks the right questions. A number of reasons why, he's waited this long to take one of these. He's been the hot name for, going on 3 years now. And because he's self-aware, he knows, I think he knew, man, my mind's not there, my heart's not there, or I'm just not ready in general. And I don't think everybody's that way, right? Not everybody is. You get offered something like that, you're going to jump at it immediately, and he's not that because he thinks about these things 5 moves out, and so that's why I think he's put a lot of thought in. He's asked a lot of good questions. We talk all the time, and so I did my best to help him be prepared to take that role, and I just, I think he's going to do great.
Do you take great pride in his success? I mean, he's been with you in Miami and Detroit. You're a mentor now.
Yeah, I've known Ben a long time, and yeah, I do. He's somebody I've always believed in and thought he could be in the seat that he's getting ready to be in, and so yeah, I do, man. I'm happy for him. I want him to do well.
Dan.
Say it again. I don't know. I mean, that's not as easy a question as it, or answer to that question. I just think, I know this, that whoever that is, they need to believe that you believe in them. They have to feel that, and if they don't, and if it's not real or there's not substance to it, then they can feel that, So If he's your guy, then you need to be all in on your guy. And I think that goes a long way and helps confidence. And then along the way, give them what they need. And sometimes they don't know what they need, but that's your job, right? So I don't know if that helps or not, but yeah.
Competitor, you think about your road schedule this year?
About who? Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like anything else. I mean, you're always looking for these nuggets, man, and of motivation, and that's it. This is a challenge, you know. We're competitive. I'm competitive, and so yeah, I love the thought of it, man. These are going to be outdoor grass. I hope it rains. It's mud. It's everything, right? The whole deal. So, and it is. We're in a meat grinder. This is going to be a meat grinder, you know, and I've said this before. We could be a better team than we were last year and have more losses. There is a chance that can happen. That's okay. It's okay. As long as we learn from what those are and we get better coming out of them, we'll be good.
I'm sure you've been at this.
Because I always think of this. I'm sorry. I always think of this. No matter what happens in the season, you're trying to sharpen your sword for the playoffs. You're trying to win a division, sharpen your sword for the playoffs. So, win, lose, whatever that is.
I know you've been asked.
In regards to the stance, just to follow up, last year you guys wanted that one seed so much.
Yeah.
What happened last year, and does that change your focus? Hey, just get to win the division. And I know that was a focus.
No, I think you're always going to say, if you're just playing the odds say that, you know, when you don't have as many games to get to a Super Bowl, that those odds are normally in your favor. That's better. You know, you don't have to one less game to have to play. So I would still say those are always going to be a goal. I mean, you got to win your division. You want to try to get a shot at the 1 seed or seed yourself the best. Certainly home game. And you go from there. But the bottom line is this. It doesn't matter. Just get your ass in the playoffs. Just get in, and then it's about the matchups and making the most of that day. And along the way, we got to get better throughout the year. We got to be much better than we were to start the season.
I'm sure you've been asked this before. Sirianni is saying that he's talking to a few players. Raheem's already said hard no. Sean McVay said hard no about the push. Where do you fall?
They're saying no as in they don't support it?
Yeah.
Who was that? Who said that?
Raheem and Sean.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I'm of the school of, look, we don't run that, right? Jared Goff, we're not gonna, doesn't mean we don't quarterback sneak, but we don't do that. But I am of the school of, hey, they found something and it's up to everybody else to stop it. So I'm of a hard yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Last two, Eric and Mike. Coach, I want to follow up on the motivation a little bit. You lose coordinators, you lose people on the front office, you lose so many different people. How much of a challenge is that for you to show that this Detroit Lions foundation is still intact, even if you have to lose so many people, and just your adjustment to that, losing so many people?
Well, I think, I mentioned this a minute ago. Everything is about setting the tone for the next season, right? And I think you're always looking for things to motivate you, you know? And the bottom line is, when you come into an organization, you want this thing you want to have a vision for it, you want to get it up on its feet, and then you want it to be self-sustaining. And I feel like we're just about there. And it's because of the people that we have in this building, you know? It's the owner we have, it's the people that we have, and you know, from scouting, the player personnel, to the coaches, and then most importantly, it's the players. You know, we've been fortunate to stay together here long enough to build this thing with a true foundation of players. We were able to draft from the ground up, also with some guys that were here, only a couple now, that were here when we got here. You know, brought in a couple of players, and particularly a player, Alex, you know, in 21. And so, but that group of players has been here now going on 5 years with us, all of us together. And so that's what it's about. That's what it's about, is this group, all of us now. We've seen the ups and downs, we've been through it, and so this is the next challenge. And so if you say, well, you lost this guy, well, that to me is a slap in the face of the guys in that locker room, all right? And so we're looking forward to this. This will be the next challenge for us. And it won't be easy, but we're all good with that, you know?
Last one here. So last summer there was an issue kind of with the receivers, and you stood up there and you said you were dying for somebody to step up. Then you got Tim Patrick, and that seemed to go really well. What's your confidence level at the receiver position this year, and would you like to maybe see some more competition there going into the summer?
Yeah, love that group. But we were fortunate that we got out last year during the season, for the most part, unscathed, you know? I mean, as far as injuries and things of that nature. But that group, TP and Leaf, and obviously Saint and J-Mo, you know, those guys that we got have been big for us. And so we would love to bring in more competition, particularly some youth. That would help, and let them all mix it up. Get in there and see where it all.
All right, so that was the Dan Campbell interview from 2 days ago at the league meetings. There's a lot in there. There's a lot that we've already discussed since this aired. My overall thoughts are still the same. The Detroit Lions did what they planned on doing this year, which was bringing back the same team. I think Dan Campbell said it best that, this was a great football team that, why mess with a good thing? You had all of the makings last season of a team that could have made it to the Super Bowl. Injuries alone obviously derailed it. At some point, we're going to have to give up on the injury excuse. But I'm sorry, 17 guys on IR, that's not an excuse. That's just a fact, right? And it's a fact that no other team has had to go through. I think it was Rod Wood that also pointed it out yesterday or the day before. He spoke to the Bills and the Eagles where he said that the Bills only had 2 players on IR and the Eagles had 1 or none, whatever he had mentioned. But that's a stark difference, Eric, right? Between what the Lions dealt with and what the Bills and the Eagles dealt with. I don't remember how many the Kansas City Chiefs had, but it wasn't many, if any. So that's where I'm going to put the season.
I'll put a healthy Lions team last year against any team in the NFL. I don't care who they are.
Yep, me too. And matter of fact, if you give us all of the players that were placed on IR after week 8, even like without Aiden, if you give us all the players after week 8 back, we're good. That team is good. Carlton Davis was a huge loss. And then to lose Meek was even worse. But Alim McNeill, man, can't lose him. You can't lose him. He was so critical in the middle there. So all right, I got a video coming out, obviously, on Shamar Stewart. We'll be talking, recapping that again. It'll come out here in a little bit. I believe the critics have it wrong. You heard me this morning as to my true feelings on Shamar Stewart. I hope that I made a good case with the Daniil Hunter stats. And, my whole point with all of that is I'm going to use Aiden again, and then we'll wrap it up. When you look at what Aiden did, he had 0 sacks as a freshman. He had 4.5 as a sophomore. He had 0 as a junior. And I think his junior year, he broke his other leg, if I remember correctly. So he didn't play. And then he had 15.5 in his senior season. So the question I want to ask you, now I know a lot of you are U of M fans, but let's be realistic for a moment. The last season was the exception, right? Not the rule. How much did Aiden play his rookie year, his freshman year at Michigan? I don't know how much. But if you were to compare those first 3 seasons to like Shamar Stewart, you would say, well, there's nothing really different here. 0, 4.5, 0. Injury, I understand. But you wouldn't be telling yourself that that's a player that's going to be a dynamic football player in the NFL if he would have came out his junior year, right? And if those stats remain the same. You would have never have thought that. But it's because he had 15.5 on a loaded defense. And I put the comparisons in the other day, I think in an article. Or if I didn't, I'll do it again. They were going up against the 80th ranked offensive lines that season on average. And I think that needs to be in the conversation. I'm not trying to take anything away from the guy. It's just you have to look at your competition. And it's exactly what you're saying about Quinton Mitchell last year or Mike Green this year or, any other football player that maybe is playing lesser competition and they have all these amazing stats. A matter of fact, I would go look at some of the NFL prospects as they're entering the draft that have had these amazing stats that doesn't cross over. They don't cross over to the NFL. And the reason why, and I know you've heard me say this before, as a receiver in the NFL, coming out of college, as a receiver rookie in the NFL, coming out of college, the best corner that you're going to face in college is now the worst corner you're going to face in the NFL. The worst tackle you're probably going to face on a, starting tackle in a Big Ten team. Or I'm sorry, the best, in college. It's the worst in the NFL. That's why there's only 272 draft picks a year. That's why there's less than 5,000 NFL athletes at any given time. Less than 0.1% of humans ever get to play the NFL game. So everything is relative to competition. And I think that it does mean something, but you have to dig a little bit deeper than just stats. Got to look at the tape. Eric, what's your final 30 of the day?
My final 30.
Or any other news you want to share? I know you sent me something.
Oh yeah. So let's end with that today. So the Dallas Cowboys have made a trade with the Patriots. So today the New England Patriots are sending quarterback Joe Milton, who both Will and I got to see at the combine last year, and man, could that kid sling the ball. So quarterback Joe Milton is being traded to the Dallas Cowboys, sources tell ESPN, with Cooper Rush going to Baltimore and Trey Lance going to the Canadian League. Dallas now has a new quarterback backup for Dak Prescott. And the compensation update is the Patriots are trading Milton and a 7th-round pick to the Cowboys in exchange for Dallas's 5th-round compensatory pick from this season. I heard more there.
Yeah, the market's just plunged 1,500 points.
Oh yeah. That's yesterday. Yeah.
So here's my thoughts on this. I know that you were saying that potential backups in that for Dak Prescott. There was some conversation about Dak possibly going to the Browns. So are the Cowboys bringing in some options to at least have on the roster? Maybe they're going to get draft pick compensation if there was a trade to the Browns, and that might give the Cowboys an opportunity to move up into the draft to get a quarterback of the future. So I'm going to keep my ears to the ground on that one. It's speculation right now. And then the other thing was you still have the Kirk Cousins availability and his potential trade. Who else? And the Aaron Rodgers thing. So does Dak Prescott maybe have an opportunity? See, I don't understand why Dak wouldn't go to Pittsburgh. Like why? And maybe Pittsburgh's just smart enough to realize we're not going to take on a $60 million contract right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Browns don't care. They'll throw money at anything and just keep putting themselves at the perils.
Even though the owner just said the Watson conundrum was the worst contract in NFL history.
Exactly.
The worst mistake they ever could have made.
Exactly.
Taking credit for all of it. Yeah.
All right. We will get back at it tomorrow, or at least I will, assuming I'm feeling good enough. But Eric will be off tomorrow. And then tomorrow's the game, right?
Yep. So tomorrow night's the game at 8 o'clock on, I believe, Fox or ESPN. And it's versus the Stallions. The Stallions are a 1.5 point favorite at Ford Field. They are the reigning champions, but they did lose last week to the DC Defenders. So this is going to be a good game, and it's always a good game when these two teams play. So don't expect a big blowout on either side. It is going to be a very much a back and forth, very close game. And I'm going to predict that whatever team has the ball last, it will be the team that wins the game. I'm going to predict the Panthers win 31-27.
Yeah, I couldn't even put in any sort of a prediction for the game tomorrow, but
yeah,
I guess I'll finish with this. Go visit warriorthread.myspreadshop.com. There's a link somewhere on the channel. Obviously, you can go right to the channel's store right when you log in there. Some new updated merch is available. I mean, everything that we're doing on that store. There's some Bears stuff, right? You know, the F the Bears shirt. There's the cancer stuff. So everything I'm doing with FTB, that's going to go to, leukemia and lymphoma.org, I think is what it is. Well, we're every month we send money to Isaac's charity. So that's what Rocked On Podcast Network does, Rocked On Cancer Foundation. So all those shirts, all that we sell from that is going to go to that too. That's why we created it, or why I created it. So anyway, visit it, check it out. There's some cool stuff on there. We've gotten quite a few sales already, so appreciate you guys. Keep on pumping it, keep on sharing it. If there's anything that you want on a shirt, just let me know. There's also a customization tool, so you can actually go in and customize and do whatever you like to do, which is a cool, unique opportunity for you. Make your own shirt. So go on the store and create your own shirt if you want. But all right, we'll see you guys back at it next week, Monday, at least together, and then I hopefully will be on tomorrow. That's the goal. Eric, we'll get together later on today.
I'll stick around for a few minutes. I need to talk to you.
All right, we'll see you guys later. Take care. Bye-bye.